As we begin this over 2-hour episode of Scary Deep Web Stories, a reminder to subscribe if you haven't already done so. If you enjoy listening to deep web stories, as well as other horror content, this channel is for you. Anyway, sit back, relax, and let's begin with covering the deep web. This story is very personal, and it has never been shared anywhere else before. Now, I'm not doing this for fame, but instead I'm doing it to spread the message that you should never go on the deep web. Anyway, this story started in the summer of 2016. This is when the creepy clown tensions were going around, and everyone in my town was on the edge regarding a murder and multiple teens dressed as clowns. Creepy times. We still had a local family video, which was pretty cool at the time. So me and my friend, who we will refer to as Dylan, we go to pick up some video games and movies for the Friday evening. That Friday evening we would spend home alone as my parents were out of town. Well, deep into the night, we got bored and tired of the junk food and video games, and Dylan suggests we go on the dark web. I had nothing to do, and when I'm tired, I tend to do dumb things I wouldn't do otherwise. Dylan downloaded Tor browser on our computer, and we began browsing. It got bad when we started seeing the messed up stuff like fingers, hitmen, etc. Then he joined a live stream titled ICU. When we joined, all we saw was a child being hurt. And that's all we could really say because I don't want the creepy fox to get demonetized. That scene still haunts me to this very day, and I needed therapy for a year to get over it. Anyway, after we left the stream, we received an anonymous text message which demanded $5,000 worth of Bitcoin, or we were going to end up like the girl in the video. This freaked us out, and we did the wrong thing. We ignored it, and we told nobody. Then they sent an image. That image was a picture of me and Dylan through our webcam and listed our school as well as my address. We were 17 at the time, and we had no idea what to do. 2 weeks passed, and nothing besides a few creepy calls to my phone, which resulted in just breathing through the telephone. And then on Tuesday morning, 2 weeks after the incident, my parents looked concerned as I walked downstairs. They took me privately into a room, and they informed me that Dylan's mom had been shot. And then they informed me an officer would be over in 10 minutes to question me. Good news though, Dylan's mom survived, but with some bad injuries long term. Now, some of you might ask why Dylan's mom was attacked. My theory is that Dylan entered some of his information setting up Tor on his laptop, and the dark web assassin assumed it was Dylan who saw the content. The creepiest thing out of all of this is that one day after the shooting, Dylan got an index card in an envelope, and it simply said, "That's why you pay me." I've been following your channel for the past year or so, and I really enjoy the style and presentation you have on offer. Something about the creepy fox just resonates excitement anytime I see an upload. I don't want to get too much into what I enjoy here, but I do want to finally sit down and share an experience I had regarding the deep web. It's been many years since this experience, and the main reason I've been hesitant in sharing this is because I often wonder if I'm still being watched. You might be asking yourself, what exactly am I rambling about? So here's pretty much what went down. It was 2017. Different times than what we're going through now that things are starting to finally open up. And I was still in college, trying to get my bachelor's degree in communications. It's the first week of school, and in my first class, it being a boring elective in geology, I'd arrived early and I'm sitting there in this huge auditorium that seats about 150 students. Slowly, students are starting to flow in as it's approaching class time, which was 8 a.m. Soon, this other college kid sits next to me, and after a couple of minutes of me trying to ignore him like the awkward guy I am, I finally muster up the strength to look up from my laptop screen and say hello. He's a friendly face, and I actually am still good friends with him today. We'll call him Jack. Jack turned out to be a huge nerd like myself, but unlike me, he enjoyed geology and anything doing with science. The only reason I'm going into some details regarding Jack is because he was the one that got me into the deep web. It was about 2 weeks since I met him, and we're hanging out outside the library where there's a Starbucks, and he's showing me some of his notes for geology class. Out of the blue, he mentions the deep web, and if I'd ever heard of it. I told him I'd heard about it only in passing, from curiosity watching some YouTube videos about it, and he says he likes to go on there to watch scary videos. Hey, to each their own, I guess. Later that night at his dorm, eating some pizza and studying, he once again mentions the deep web and asks if I wanted to see some of the scary videos he's come across. I said sure and braced myself for the cringe I would experience, which honestly didn't disappoint. Definitely some pretty crazy stuff that I really wish I could get into detail with, but I'll try to keep this as clean as possible. Anyways, I asked him if he could help me install a web browser on my laptop so that I could browse the deep web sometime on my own. Yeah, I'm not really sure how that was such a great idea, but until curiosity gets you into trouble, you don't really think about the consequences. Another couple of weeks go by and I'd gotten really busy studying on the upcoming midterms. I remember it being a Friday night. It's raining and I'm in my room just finishing talking to a friend of mine over Skype. We used the webcam, by the way, because he wanted me to see the new kittens his cat had just given birth to. As I'm sitting there about to sign off for the night, I remembered the browser my friend had installed on my laptop, as well as some of the websites he told me to check out, just in case I wanted to watch some creepy videos. Reluctantly, I launched the browser, and sure enough, I spent the next 20 to 30 minutes scrolling through and watching some really grainy videos that, quite frankly, looked as if they were made by some bored teenagers. After a while, I went on to this forum. I like to compare it to a website like Reddit, where people talk about various topics, ranging from normal conversations to crazy stories about how people have had experiences with cryptids and beings from other worlds. Again, I wasn't really surprised. I forgot the name of the website since I pretty much wiped my phone, but I went to an address that had a small chat room where people could talk anonymously. I just sat there reading the messages, and they were pretty tame from what I remember. Things would escalate when I randomly received an email notification on my phone. I looked at it, and I noticed an email from someone I didn't know. The title said, "We are watching you, and greetings from the dark web," and attached was an image. Now, I don't think I have to explain to you how dangerous it is to open an attached file from an unknown address, but I, being the naive person I am, I clicked on it anyways, and opened it. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. It's a picture of me looking at my computer screen. But how was that possible? Then I realized it. My webcam was still on. I pretty much went into a panicked frenzy as I quickly put one of my sticky notes over the camera, and then I exited the browser I was using. I got so paranoid, in fact, I did a complete restore of my computer, backing it up to about a week ago using the time machine that's installed. Fast forward about a week later, and I get a phone call claiming to be from someone named Charles. The voice was deep, and at first all I heard was heavy breathing. Now, before I hung up, they introduced themselves, and they told me how pretty I looked, describing into details what clothes I was wearing the night the picture was taken. I proceeded to block the number, changing my number as well, and things went silent after that. I know it's sort of an anticlimactic ending, but honestly, nothing else happened after that, apart from having nightmares that some random creep from the dark web would show up to my house. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I still often get the feeling like I'm being watched from afar, but those feelings have slowly started to fade away over the years, now that I've moved to a different state, and have even legally changed my name. Hey guys, so just a quick trigger warning on the following story. It does contain themes of animal cruelty. I know even for me, it's not exactly something I like to hear, but because I like to present these stories to you all completely uncensored and also completely unfiltered, I've gone ahead and included it since it is a deep web story, If you want to go ahead and skip ahead, I do have timestamps. They're already integrated into the video, so just check the chapters right below and you can skip ahead. Here it is, completely uncensored. A few days ago, I decided to use the deep web. My friends always said it was fun to use. However, I've watched enough YouTube videos to know that you shouldn't really exactly go messing around with it. Unfortunately, I went and did that. I decided to use this one website which would take you to one of the random deep websites out there. However, the one I ended up on was absolutely sickening. I didn't realize it at the time, but the people on this site are animal killers and abusers. I wanted to click off desperately and destroy my computer. However, curiosity got the best of me. So I clicked onto a video called Dog Fireworks, and I watched it. The man decided to light some fireworks with his dog outside with him, and he just let his dog run right on top of him. When the fireworks hit, they shredded through the dog. God, I can still remember its last few painful cries as the owner just laughed. The poor thing then kicked its guts out, and I threw up on the floor next to me. I was sickened. Now, I understand how curiosity killed the cat, but right when I thought my lesson was over, it was not. The following morning when I woke up, I heard a distant shouting, which was followed by some crying as well. That's when I realized I left my bedroom window open. So I throw on a shirt and some shoes, and I go out the front door. What I saw on my neighbor's lawn was not pretty to say the least. There lied their now dead dog. Poor thing looked as if it had its throat slit, and its legs were chopped off. The shouting was from a man who was telling their son to call the cops, and the crying was from a woman who was the owner of the dog. Needless to say, I needed to puke again, so I ran inside and I realized my door was wide open. I know I closed it. On the other side of it was a note which read, "Stay the hell off, or you're next," just like what you saw yesterday. This scared the absolute shit out of me, so I ran to Walmart and I got some Bluetooth security cameras. I've been through 3 sleepless nights as of now, and I'll update all of you if anything happens. Update. So a few days ago, I had a friend come over so I could get some sleep. When I woke up on the day of writing this, nothing odd had been seen by the cameras. So later on towards the night, I decided to walk over to the small fast food joint so I could grab myself and my friend some grub for dinner. I ordered it to go, as my friend was back at my place waiting, and it was getting dark. I paid for the food and I got out of there, and as soon as I started walking down the road, I was jumped. This guy looked exactly like the guy from the video, so mentally, I was shitting myself. "What do you want?" I asked. Slowly, I began reaching for my dad's taser, which he left for me whenever he went on vacation and I was home alone. "Oh, you should know what I want," he said in a slow, creepy voice. As I began to grab my wallet, I instead brought out the taser and I fired it at full blast, which shocked the guy and knocked him out cold. I then bolted the rest of the way home, and I told my friend what had happened and how I went onto the deep web. He scolded me for it, but I agreed to never go back on. About an hour later, we were watching the news. That's when the reporter said they had found a man outside a restaurant who was responsible for the murders of over 100 dogs, none of which belonged to him. The reporter showed a picture of the man, and sure enough, it was the same guy that I tased. I sighed a breath of relief, and I took down the cameras. Thank God that guy is going to jail. Another warning for the following story. It contains details of graphic violence that might be disturbing to some audiences. Please proceed with caution as you listen to the following story. When I was in high school, my father began what he referred to as a project in our basement. He never specified what it was exactly, only that it was strictly for his business, and whatever went on down there was to be kept confidential. Heck, he even went so far as to soundproof the basement walls. While I found it odd that his job would demand that level of secrecy, I didn't push it. Some of my buddies at school were into some very bizarre and kinky adult websites, namely shock videos like Two Girls, One Cup. They spent time on obscure adult websites in order to find this really weird stuff. As for me, I didn't spend much time surfing the net, typically to look up NFL or NBA highlights and social media sites that never really appealed to me. Whenever my friends brought up this strange stuff they were interested in, I usually tuned out. But one afternoon during lunch, my close friend Kevin began describing what he referred to as the dark web. He said it was a place that could only be accessed with a special software, and that the things you find there made all the kinky adult sites seem tame by comparison. Hitman websites, videos of animal torture and mutilation, realistic, or maybe even genuine, depictions of sexual assault. He also saw links to CP, though he denied clicking on any of those. I admit hearing this caught my interest. Could such a messed up place truly exist on the internet? Kevin would invite us over for a sleepover on the weekend so he could show us what he was talking about, and we agreed. Several days later, as Kevin began browsing through this dark web, me and my friends saw that he wasn't exaggerating. We saw links and thumbnails showing every terrible thing that he had described. During the search, he stumbled across a random untitled link that stoked his curiosity. "What do you think? Should we watch it?" I said nothing, but all my other friends said yes. Kevin clicked the link and we were greeted by a digital clock in glowing red numbers, slowly counting down to 0. Apparently, he had stumbled across a live stream. The clock disappeared after reaching 0 and we could only see a dark screen, and the only noise was the sound of heavy breathing. This went on for about 30 seconds before a beam of light appeared from a flashlight. We saw a very ugly mask, and from what I could tell from the limited light, the man was also wearing a top hat, a suit, and a cape. He began speaking, his voice heavily distorted. "Greetings, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. You may call me Hawkins, and boy do we have a show for you tonight, a pair of helpless victims." The rest of the screen became illuminated and we saw a small room with red painted walls. On the back wall were 2 women, completely nude, locked up in wall-mounted cufflinks. One of them was obese, the other very fit. Hawkins would slowly creep up to the obese one. "Ugly ones like you don't deserve to share the world with the pretty ones." He glanced at the other woman, who was the more attractive of the 2. "Am I right?" She said nothing and just glared at him in disgust. "I'll deal with you in a minute, but for now, we deal with the ugly one. Garden shears." A second pair of hands came in from off-screen to give Hawkins the garden shears. For some reason, this assistant didn't want to show himself. A pity. If only you were better looking. He opened the shears and began cutting into the woman's breasts, leading to a deafening howl of pain and shocked gasps from me and my friends. Hawkins took his sweet time. He really wanted this woman to suffer. He then went down to her ankles and tried slicing them off, but found himself unable to. No matter. Chainsaw. My heart sunk when he mentioned the chainsaw. After receiving it, he revved it up and sliced off both of the woman's feet, leading to more cries of anguish. The second woman likewise began sobbing in terror. Hawkins then directed the chainsaw to her abdomen, and blood and guts began flying all over the place. One of my friends passed out from shock, and another began to vomit. Hawkins shut off the chainsaw. "Let her bleed. But as for you," he said, looking in the direction of the other woman, "whip." The assistant handed him the whip, and Hawkins gave the woman a number of brutal lashings. It was at this point when Kevin noticed the live stream had a message box, and people began typing all sorts of terrible messages, all of which were expressing glee at what they were watching. Kevin typed, What the heck is wrong with you people? The police will hear of this. Hawkins released the woman from her wall-mounted shackles and unzipped his pants. Then his assistant spoke up. Hey boss, check out this message. Hawkins kicked the woman very hard in the abdomen and walked over to the camera. Oh, a tough guy. Hey Kevin, gonna call the police on me? Huh? We all gasped when we heard this crazy masked man mention my friend's name. Whatever, I have all the information I need on you. Looks like I'll be seeing you very soon. A second box appeared showing his name and home address. Kevin was frozen in terror. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have business to attend to. Kevin shut off the computer and the rest of our friends bailed on us. However, I chose to stay behind even though I was also frightened out of my wits. Fortunately, nothing happened that night, but Kevin didn't get any sleep. A few weeks passed without incident. It seemed that the situation had finally blown over. Until one Friday night, I was up watching the 11 news. I gasped in horror when I saw a reporter standing outside what I recognized as Kevin's house. His parents and siblings were murdered and Kevin himself was reported as missing. My God, they got him, I said to myself. During the night, I woke up to use the restroom. As I walked out of my bedroom door, I saw my father walking up the stairs. His clothing was covered in dirt. Dad, it's 1 a.m. What the heck were you doing? Fixing a busted sprinkler. At this hour? Why not? Is there some law that says I can't? He said, with a strong air of sarcasm. Whatever, Dad, I sighed, and I went back to sleep. The next afternoon, my dad went out to run some errands. It was here when I decided to be a naughty boy and check out the basement. Looking back, I'm not really sure why I picked that particular moment to head down there. I didn't usually have a rebellious streak, but screw it. I wanted to see what the secrecy was all about. I made my way downstairs and flipped on the light switch. So far, the basement didn't look much different from when I had last set foot down there. Then I noticed something behind the staircase that definitely wasn't there before. A door. With my curiosity at its maximum, I opened the door and a light turned on automatically, and what I saw made my blood chill. It was a small room with red painted walls and cufflinks. It looked identical to that room I'd seen in that awful live stream weeks earlier. In a corner lay garden shears and a chainsaw, both stained in blood. There was also a desk with a computer and a webcam, and next to the computer was an ugly mask that I recognized immediately, the one that Hawkins was wearing. I heard my father shouting upstairs because he noticed the basement door was wide open. He came down cursing at me and then stopped in his tracks when he saw me standing in the entry of his sacred room and holding the mask. His face changed from anger to shock instantly. We stared at each other in awkward silence for a very long time. Feeling enraged and betrayed, I walked over to him and punched him in the mouth. He was too shocked to move and didn't even try to defend himself. I then went upstairs to call the police. My father would be arrested shortly thereafter. He had soundproofed the basement walls as a means of preventing anyone's screams from being heard. Also, my friend Kevin and those two women from the livestream were buried in her backyard, their bodies thoroughly dismembered and laid on top of one another. This explains my dad's late-night yard work. As to why he took the name Hawkins as his dark web identity, there's a man buried in a nearby cemetery named Carl Hawkins. He was murdered in 1995, and my father confessed to being his killer. Blood evidence collected at the scene back then was an exact match. It's been 5 years since his arrest and sentencing. I haven't paid him one visit in prison whatsoever. He will be executed by lethal injection within the next few years. Meanwhile, I'm left to wonder if the man who raised me somehow passed some of those bad genes to me. I fear that one day I'll snap and I'll become the same monster that he had become. The deep web. What else is there to say about it? Well, one thing is for sure. There are a lot of so-called stories out there that claim this or they claim that. Though most of it is true, a lot of people like to embellish their stories to the point where you know it's obviously fake. Well, what I'm going to be retelling you all today is what I experienced with the deep web. Let me, though, just give a fair warning. If any of you out there are thinking about using it, just don't do it. Yes, there are some things you can find that aren't that bad, but it's when you're on the dark web when things really turn for the worst. It's there you can find things like hitmen, drugs, weapons, pictures of dead bodies, the non-living of course, and much worse. Now, for privacy reasons, I'm not going to reveal my exact location, but I will say I was living in Europe. To start, I'll take you back 10 years ago. It was summer vacation, and I, being the bored college student I was, I'd spent most of my time in my small townhouse. I think that's what you guys call it over there in the US, right? Anyway, it's here I would play video games, eat snacks, and listen to narrators narrate stories. After listening to stories upon hours and hours of scary stories, I became interested in a certain topic, the deep web. Well, after a few days of watching more videos and documentaries about the deep web, I decided it was my time to explore it. I downloaded Tor, and I began my adventure with some links I'd seen on Reddit. They were pretty boring. Documents, webmail, magazines, and videos on demand services, that's what made up most of the afternoon search. Talk about underwhelming. The next day, I did some searching and found some sites for weapons and drugs. Finally, something more interesting. However, what really started everything was when I was trying to access a forum on a website. It was sort of like LiveLeak. It had a lot of gore videos as well as shock material, but also a chat in which you can talk to people. I made a quick account and a comment, and I said, "Man, we are some really messed up people if we're watching this stuff." The chat went silent for 2 minutes. I continue looking at videos though, before one commenter types, "We don't much take kindly to strangers like you." Another person types saying, "Stupid kid, I already got their IP address. Can't believe he was dumb enough to leave his webcam on. I can't wait to go see him in person and bring him to one of our special rooms." That freaked me out, so I instantly closed the browser. I then looked at my webcam, and indeed it was on. I had made the dumb mistake of forgetting to close Skype. See, I was talking to my girlfriend an hour or so before I decided to go on the deep web. But anyway, I thought the comments were just stupid things. I mean, no way somebody can find you just from comments and having your webcam on, right? Well, fast forward a week, and I'd come back from spending time at my girlfriend's house. I was about to enter my home when one of my neighbors, who we will call Madeline, ends up stopping me and saying, "Hey man, where were you this past week?" "Oh, I was over at my girlfriend's house." "Why, what's up?" "There was some man that was looking for you the other night. It was close to midnight. It was really weird. He looked like a burglar or some sort. He was tall and lanky and was wearing dirty clothes. Almost looked homeless to me. Also, he wouldn't take his hands out of his jacket. I thought the dude had a weapon on him. Anyway, I told him he needed to leave, otherwise I was going to call the cops. Seems he got the hint, since my 2 pit bulls were on the verge of wanting to tackle him down and attack him." Well, that was weird. I sure didn't know any sort of drug dealers or anything. Also, if somebody was looking for me, they would have my number, right? Regardless, I enter my room and notice there's a note on the ground. Seems someone must have slipped it under when I was away. Well, I go to open it thinking it's just an advertisement for the local pizza shop, since sometimes they will do that. But instead, I'm surprised with a message. It simply says, "Found you." At that moment, I was confused. Found who exactly? Me? What was it supposed to be about? I wasn't sure, but as I was pondering this, there was something that was annoying me. A constant beeping. I snap out of it thinking and realizing it's the answering machine for my phone. I walk over and I notice there were 2 missed calls. Now, I live alone in this home, so it's not like anyone else was expecting a message or a call. This is when I go to play the message back. "You have 2 missed calls. First call, July 15th, 11:37 p.m. There is nothing but silence for 5 seconds. Then there is breathing, followed by some mumbling. The call ends. Second missed call, July 15th, 11:45 p.m. Hey there, I found you. I'm coming to get you. I'm going to take you out into the woods, and I'm going to have fun ending your life. He's in the middle of saying something else afterwards when I am able to hear someone's voice in the background. It sounds just like Madeline's voice along with the pit bulls barking up a storm. In the background I hear, "Hey, what are you doing out here? This isn't your home. You need to leave or I'm calling the cops." That's when I finally put 2 and 2 and realized something. The guy that was outside my home and the one who called, they were the same person. But who was he? It couldn't have been the guy from the deep web. That was impossible. Well, let's just say I became extremely paranoid and had the police do constant patrolling of my neighborhood. Nothing happens for 2 months, and I started to think everything was just a coincidence. At that point, I'd moved back with my parents, who lived 2 hours away from me, as I hoped it was the end of everything. On top of this, the old computer I had once used to go on the deep web had been recycled and presumably destroyed. Anyway, I was on Facebook one evening when I received a message. It simply said, "Why did you leave? Look what you made me do." My townhouse, the one I was living in, had been on fire, but there was a picture of it with flames, and then the aftermath of what was left over. It ended up showing up in the news actually, and an investigation came out of it. But sadly, no one was ever found responsible. Even my old neighbors were questioned about it, but they were all cleared of any charges. I did forward the message to police, and they looked into it. Nothing. It has been over 3 years, and I have not heard anything else. The account associated with the pictures no longer exists, and I had to delete all my social media soon after I got the messages. I live with constant anxiousness anytime I see unmarked vehicles with darkened out windows. But like I said, nothing more has happened ever since. Part of me hopes that if it was someone from the deep web, they have moved on to someone else, as mean and messed up as that sounds. I've heard so many stories in regards to the deep web, and really, I can say it's not exactly something you want to be on. Now sure, it's neat to check out some of the less scary things, but sometimes curiosity can get the better of you. I'll go ahead and describe something I experienced about 3 years ago. At the time, I was still in high school, and I was 17 years old. I recall my friends talking about some really weird stuff they had seen online. I ended up wanting to know what they had been talking about, and they mentioned something called the deep web. Of course, I wasn't sure what they meant by that, so they showed me some videos about it, and safe to say it piqued my interest. Not for the terrible things, but just the overall mystery behind it. But how to go on it was the question I kept asking myself. There was no answer. There were various programs, however, that you could get, but was it truly safe to do so? So for the next couple of days, I spent time doing some research about it. That's when I finally got the courage to download Tor. Now with my keys to the deep web kingdom, the exploring began. It was mild at first. After about 30 minutes, I found a website that had videos on it. Some of the videos were just still creepy images with scary music, sort of like those scary image slideshows you can find on YouTube, and others looked to be like homemade videotapes. I clicked on a few videos, and apart from a few jump scares here and there, I decided I had enough. However, before leaving, I did notice there looked to be an online chat room. Curious, I went ahead and I checked it out. There were a total of around 15 people, and each were talking about different videos that they had seen. Since I saw anyone could comment and they could make a random username, well, I went ahead and commented on some of the videos I'd watched. I kid you not, the whole chat went silent and I was left confused. Don't tell me they haven't seen a normal comment just say hello or something. After 20 seconds of no responses, someone finally sends a message out. "Hello to you back. I see we have a new victim to toy with." I figured whoever commented that was just messing around, so I went ahead and played along with it, but it was a big mistake. "Huh, yeah, I guess I am, aren't I? What are you gonna do? Come to my house and kidnap me?" "Oh, we're gonna do that, just you wait. We know you've been watching videos the past hour." I was confused by what this person meant. As it turned out, there was a little counter on the bottom of the page I hadn't really paid attention to. It will show how many people are on the website at any given time. I'm guessing the number had stayed the same before I went on the website. Oh, and I guess I forgot to mention something else of importance here. It's not exactly smart to have normal pages and applications open when exploring this part of the web. I'll go ahead and tell you why in a bit, but anyway, I got genuinely creeped out right now and logged off immediately. This, however, isn't the end of my experience yet. Fast forward to the next day at school, and I told my friends about what I had done. They thought I was lying, but I told them they could come over to my house to check it out for themselves. Therefore, that afternoon, we went to my house to go and log on yet again. My parents were confused as to why exactly my friends were over, but I told them we were working on a school project together. So once we were successfully online, I showed them some of the places I looked up. They then typed in their own suggestions, and we found some pretty nasty things. Since I had all my friends with me, I now had the courage to take them back to the site I'd been on. Going on the site, I noticed I had a missed message. I guess making a username automatically makes you an official member of that place. I click on the little notification symbol, and it appears to be like the same person who messaged back the other day. The message more or less said something like this: "Did you think signing off was going to hide you from me? Don't tell me you thought I couldn't tell you were being sarcastic there. Also, thanks for leaving your Skype open and your webcam on. I can't wait to find you." If that wasn't creepy enough, there appeared to be an image I could download. I was too scared to open it, but my friend suggested I do it anyway. Against any logic, we went ahead and clicked on it. No joke, there was a screenshot of the conversation I had, and you could even see my Skype was open. I have no idea how he did it, but somehow he had gotten a picture. My friends thought I was making this up to scare them, but one look at my face said otherwise. Best course of action now was to completely remove the program and do a hard resetting of the entire computer. And that's what I ended up doing, and I thought all my worries were behind me. However, fast forward about 7 months later, and I started to notice some very strange activity going on. I'm not sure if it was a coincidence or not, but one night this minivan with darkened out windows started following me home. It did give me the creeps, but by this point I'd already forgotten about what had happened earlier in the year. Over the next couple of nights, I would notice that same van parked across the street. It got so bad, I actually ended up calling police explaining the situation I was in. I didn't mention the deep web part, I just told them about the van. Now, since it hadn't done anything wrong, they told me that they couldn't really do much. They did, however, tell me they would keep a lookout for it. Even so, there was one final thing that happened. Our family was getting ready to move away as my dad had found a better job. I myself was going to be studying abroad, and I was going to be leaving soon anyway. One morning, I'd gotten up early to go for a run. On my porch was a box that simply had my name on it. It was small, but I thought perhaps a friend of mine had left it or something. Inside, I would never forget what I found. There were pictures of my house, along with pictures of me taken from a distance, whether it be at home or at the park. They surely creeped me out. If that wasn't enough, there was a letter, and it simply said, "See, I told you I would find out where you lived. But why did you have to call the cops? You ruined our fun. You're lucky I'm feeling nice and letting you go with a warning. But don't ever mess around with me or our chat room ever again." You bet your ass I accepted that warning without giving it another question. I did, however, now show all of this to the police, but ultimately nothing ever came up. I no longer had any of the logs on my computer as I had to reset it. Also, I'm not sure how he found out where I lived, but one thing is very certain. I know I am never going on the deep web ever again. Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. As for myself, well, things have gotten better, albeit I can be quite paranoid at times. You see, for the past couple of weeks, I've been watching scary stories on the Creepyfox, and I came across the topic of the deep web. Honestly, I had no idea it was such a big thing. I thought the creepy experience I had with the deep web, well, perhaps it was just a me thing. A wrong place at the wrong time, a series of events that has led me to having to get some help. More than anything, though, I wanted to act as a reminder. Most of the stories you hear about the deep web, well, they're true. Well, at least the dark web part. So if you're curious about checking it out yourself, let's just say I wouldn't really recommend it, unless you know what you're getting yourself into. Now I really want you to feel like you're with me, so I apologize if the story is a bit long, but I don't want to miss any details for you all. This was back around the summer of 2016. I want to say it was July or so. I had nothing to do on this cooler than average evening, so I called up my friend, who in this retelling we will refer to as Robert. Hey man, what are you up to? Got anything planned? Nah man, I'm just chilling and playing some video games. Want to come over? We can order a pizza. I figured it was a better thing than falling asleep to the sounds of crickets, so I get in my car and I make the 20-minute drive over to his apartment. Little did I know, however, that this was going to set a series of, well, quite frankly, very scary events. So we do order a pizza, and we do play some video games, and after a while, my friend brings up the topic of the deep web. Hey, you want to watch some scary videos? I know some websites you've probably never heard of. We head over to his computer, which he had actually completely built himself, and he loads up a program I'd never heard of before. Obviously, I now know it's called Tor, but to me it was completely foreign. So, what search engine is this exactly? I've never heard of it. Why not just use Firefox? Isn't that your favorite? Oh, no, dude, no. Not for what we're going to look at. What do you mean? I replied. You've never heard about deep web browsing? No, I don't even know what that is. Care to explain to me? I'll save you the details, but he pretty much gave me a 3-minute Spark Notes covering what the deep web was, what you could find, and even the things that you could order on there as well. I got excited and I couldn't wait to see what he wanted to show me. We both loved his scary movies, so when he says this was unlike the definition of scary that I knew, well, I was calling his bluff. First thing I remember was him copying and pasting a link that he had in a Word document, and it taking us to a video sharing website. Think of it sort of like Dailymotion or Vimeo, but really watered down. He showed me some videos, kind of like the ones you can find on LiveLeak. Now, most of them were jump scares, with a few scenes depicting some creepy acts. Then after 10 or so minutes, we move on to another page that featured a live stream. This live stream featured a chat box and the option to donate money as well. Now, while all you could see in the video feed was an empty room with a chair and a table in the middle, we watched as the people in the chat room, which consisted of about 20 or so people, as they spoke about what they wanted to see be done. It soon became apparent that they wanted things done to a person due to everything they were describing. It's too gruesome to explain on here, but after a bit, I remember telling my friend, "Hey, dude, this stuff you're showing me, it's not real, right? Are they really talking about killing someone?" It started to become pretty apparent what we were watching. It was an actual stream of a possible maniac wanting to do something terrible. It was really starting to become a little too much for Robert and I, but what really set the scene was when finally someone enters the frame. It's a man in a ski mask. The person then walks up to the camera and looks to the left. It's as if he's reading the chat room. After a minute, it appears as if he clicks on a button because you can finally hear audio in there. It's quite faint, but when my friend turns up the volume, you can hear the sounds of weeping. The man yells at the person out of frame to be quiet, but this only causes the sobbing to get worse. I look at my friend and I say, "Bro, this isn't real. Please tell me this is just some sort of stupid, creepy college art project or something." "Nah, man. This thing's real. Even I didn't see this before. Last time I was on here, it was just some guy in a mask talking nonsense." I could hear the nervousness in his voice. It's now we should have just closed the program and saved ourselves from what we would soon experience, but we kept watching out of curiosity as the chat room lit up with comments. After another couple of minutes, the man finally speaks up and he says, "Wow, I see somebody donated quite a lot of money. So, face rearrangement? Fine. If that's what you want, then I'll do it." He walks off with the frame, and then we hear yelling. The man then starts bringing someone into frame, but just before we can see or hear anything, the feed goes dark. This angers everyone in the chat room as they begin wondering why the hell they couldn't see what was happening. We too were curious as to the fate of the person on the other end. The whole time we were contemplating on calling the police, but the thing is, what could they do, to be honest? We sat there at a loss of words, and after 5 minutes of comments, the feed lights come back on. It's the man again, except this time he was holding on to the glasses the other man was wearing before the screen went dark. Also, we can see some dark reddish liquid dripping off the glasses, and some of it is on the man's t-shirt. Blood. Now, as for the screaming, it's completely gone. I'm sorry, everyone. It looks like we had a camera malfunction on our end. I wish you could have seen and heard the screams, but now it's no fun if he's silent. I'll get someone else really soon, and I'll show you what they end up looking like. That was enough for us. Before the creepy man could show us what he had done, my friend closes the browser, and we spend the next few minutes looking at each other in shock. Now, though we didn't actually see what happened, it did not take a genius to realize what the man on the other end had done. When the person in the chat room who sent the money said they wanted face rearrangement, we knew quite frankly what exactly they meant by that. After that, we both had nightmares for months, and we decided never again to explore the dark web, nor to return to it to see if he would actually show us what he had done. Seeing as there's such a fascination with the deep web, I decided to check it out in 2015. Now, if you're wondering how to get on it, I'm not going to tell you because, well, let's just say I would rather you avoid any problems that come with being a curious cat. Now, just so we get one thing straight here, I wasn't really looking for anything that could get me in any sort of trouble. I just wanted to see if I could find some sort of secret documents or something. Sort of like I was a spy or a ninja in one of those James Bond movies. I searched for about 30 minutes and I came across the typical websites, even the sites that claim to have hitmen, and even though they looked legitimate, I sure did not want to mess with those. I did find one website that was sort of like a pay-per-view. You could watch videos by using an online currency like Bitcoin, or you could complete surveys and unlock them for free. I had nothing else to do, so I went ahead and clicked on one of those. Naturally, I didn't actually put my information, so I started making something up. Unfortunately, when submitting the information, it kept telling me such an address did not exist. How funny, because I didn't know surveys were that picky. This is when I decided to put the address of my old home, not really taking into consideration just how dangerous. For some context, a family friend actually were the ones who purchased the house after we sold it to them a year ago. Oh, and as for the survey, it pretty much was like the ones you could find on the regular web. At the end of this 3-minute survey, I finally was able to watch a video, which was titled House of Screams. Sadly, it was really dumb, and even though the screams were kinda creepy, that's all it was. Somebody was walking inside an abandoned home and screams were being heard. I thought maybe something would have popped out or the cameraman would have caught some creepy person, but needless to say, I was left in disappointment. Fast forward about a month, I was talking to the daughter, who's a friend of mine, of the family we sold the house to, and we're just catching up. Soon the conversation of strange events happening at the house was brought up. Apparently, they had been noticing a van drive down their street really slowly. It was unmarked, with the windows all darkened out and tinted out. Also, there was one night herself, her mom and dad were returning from dinner. Now, as they got closer to the house, they saw a tall figure leave a box at the front door. That's before taking off into that same van, which was parked close by them. Well, she goes on to say her family called the police because they found the activity and the box suspicious. Inside the box, the police found a bunch of old pictures that looked like they were taken from the early 1900s. There was also a teddy bear inside the box. What was inside the teddy bear? Well, there was a bunch of needles, of course. Now, what's really weird was that after that box was left, they stopped showing up. I don't know what the purpose of leaving that box was for, and whether it had to do with me putting the address on the deep web. However, something tells me they might be connected because no other person in the neighborhood or even the city said something like that happened to them. Update. My friend called me a couple of weeks later saying they found the guy. They were caught on their home camera, which they installed as a response to what had happened previously. As it turned out, he had connections with leaving mysterious, dangerous packages at homes, and he was using the deep web to get all that information from people. I could really use your advice with this one, everyone. I gained nothing from making this up, and I'm honestly still scared about it all this time later. Please understand that due to me retelling this, I'm going to have to keep myself anonymous. Let me begin. Some time ago, I ended up moving out from home and started attending community college. I'm female, by the way, and I was 19 years old. Anyway, my parents ended up helping me get a small apartment. Luckily, I was able to help pay it off with a job I worked at a nearby Ralph's. My first spring semester there was pretty uneventful, to say the least, and I would spend most of my free time going on the now non-existent Club Penguin. Silly, I know, but there is a point to all of this. Just give me a moment to get to it. Over time, I started getting to know the different users, and I really connected with one person in particular. It's been almost 3 years, and I already forgot the username, but it was something like, "Diamonds are unbreakable." And yes, I did just make a JoJo reference. But I digress. The point is, we ended up adding each other on Instagram after talking for almost 2 months. He didn't have any pictures of himself. It was just anime artwork and various other Club Penguin pictures. I myself had a normal profile with pictures of myself, my family, etc. Also, this was during a time when my profile was set to public, something I later regretted. Anyway, this was how we interacted for the next month or two. We started talking about random things, until one day he mentions the deep web. Now, up to that point, I'd seen a few videos about it, but I thought most of it was just fabricated and fake. The stories sounded just like that. Stories. Something people told each other, but never really proved. He goes to tell me that he had been on the dark web before a couple of days ago, and he saw some pretty scary things. He even goes ahead and sends me some pictures of what he found. It definitely creeped me out, and I started to become more interested. Not in the pictures, but checking out the deep web. I wanted to see what the big deal was and prove there was nothing to these stories I heard. Of course, I wanted to make sure I did it as safely as possible, so he ends up sending me some directions and basic programs I could use to get to it. It took a little bit, but over a Skype session, we were able to get it installed on my computer. Thing is, I didn't want anything too crazy, so I told him, "Okay, just don't send me some creepy stuff that could get me in trouble. Give me some good recommendations nonetheless." He sent me a couple of websites, which I eagerly clicked on. The first one was a website that contained a bunch of old medical documents. Some of them even showed some pretty eerie grayscale Polaroids. The next one appeared to be sort of like a social media website. Think of Facebook. There were forums, the option to make profiles, and even pages that you could follow. I actually went ahead and I made my own profile. Of course, I used a different name, but I made the dumb decision of using one of my photos. I guess that's what I got for being so into myself. Mind you, it was a really old picture from like 5 years ago. Moments after uploading the picture, it clicked in me that I was on the deep web. I should have not put my own photos. Realizing my mistake, I changed it to the default image about 5 minutes later. Sadly, it was already too late. I soon forgot about the website and I logged off. Fast forward 3 days later, and my friend told me he was going to be moving to a different home and he might not respond for the next week or so. I was fine with this as I was busy with my midterms as well as work. Fast forward another 2 days, and my curiosity was starting to pick up again. I remembered that social media site I had made an account on. I went on it, and I noticed I had a follow request. The person's name was simply Billy. Well, that was funny. I forgot to mention this, but my Club Penguin friend's name was also Billy. I guess he might have added me on there. I mean, he was the one that sent me the link, and I did tell him I made a profile. So I accepted him thinking, whatever, it's not like some random person is going to add me. Almost immediately though, I got a message from this Billy. Hey there, thanks for adding me. It's always great to have friends on here. By the way, you're really pretty in your profile picture. This confused me. I thought I had changed the profile picture before. It turned out just because you removed the profile picture itself didn't mean it was removed from the photo album. Sure enough, that selfie of me was there. I went into panic mode as I looked for a way to delete it. Billy reassured me it wasn't a big deal, and I started to relax a bit. Okay, Billy, so I guess since we're friends on here, we can secretly message each other without anyone finding out what we might be sharing, right? Billy, and I say that name in quotations, responds with a simple, yeah, you're right. There are so many things I want to show you. Billy then proceeds to send me a link that was supposed to be an online game. Want to play together? It's sort of like Minecraft. You can build things with blocks. It's fun, I promise. I decided, why the hell not, and I clicked on it. This was a terrible idea, because my computer crashed almost immediately after that. Great. Sadly, the computer wasn't working properly. My best guess was the link I clicked on was responsible for it. Over on my phone, I messaged Billy on Instagram, mad that he now owed me a new computer. Wow, Billy, really? You know you owe me a new computer. It completely crashed. 20 minutes later, he responds with confusion. The conversation was like this. What are you talking about, Lexi? I never did anything to your computer. Oh yeah? Then explain the so-called game you wanted me to play. Okay, I'm lost. What exactly do you mean? And what are you talking about? The link you sent me on the deep web. I mean, your profile's name is Billy, right? I never made a profile on there. I just sent it because you requested I send stuff that wasn't super scary. Besides, I've been really busy with the move. I already told you that. Needless to say, the so-called Billy person who sent me a request, well, he wasn't my buddy I'd been talking to. It just so happened that somebody with the same name happened to send me a request, and I was under the complete wrong assumption here. That's when the panic started to set in yet again. The person most likely took a screenshot of my photo and most likely will find me too. As an update, about a month later, I received a creepy message on my Instagram. I still remember the username, and it gave me the chills. It was, Billy is still here. The message had a picture sent, as well as a caption with, I found you. I opened the picture, and sure enough, it was the one I'd uploaded there on that website. Immediately, I blocked him, and I deleted all of my social media. And in case you're wondering, I have tried looking up his Instagram, but he ended up removing it. What do you guys think I should do next? Any and all help is greatly appreciated. For some context, I live in Wasilla, Alaska, and it all began one boring evening around 2016 when I went on the deep web. Now, I wasn't someone who was inexperienced with it. I actually would go on there on occasion just to see what I can find. I ended up finding a website that contained internet mysteries and documented strange events. For 3 or 4 months, I've been following one page in particular that claimed to be a so-called game. Someone would post a code, and you were supposed to try and figure out what it meant. From there, it would lead you down a series of steps until you ended up finding coordinates to a certain location. It is here a supposed prize would be waiting for you. So I guess the best way to describe it was a sort of like a treasure hunt of sort. Anyway, one day I decided I would try to figure out the code. I wouldn't actually go to the location, however I would see if I could solve it somehow nonetheless. I had my friend Anthony help me out, who was actually really great with computer programming, and we were able to find out that it was binary code. Eventually, we figured it out, as it was telling us to search for a certain website that contained a video. We opened the link, and it takes us to this pretty boring and plain website. In the middle, there's a video player, and above it says, "Thanks for making it this far. Now watch the video for the following steps." We play the video, and it just shows a bunch of creepy imagery with eerie music. At the end of the slideshow, it then begins giving us Morse code. This goes on for a couple of minutes before the video ends with one final message saying, "Come and find it." Well, once we figured out the Morse code, it gave us directions for a payphone. We were surprised to learn that out of all the states, it was actually located out in northern Alaska, 20 miles outside of Fairbanks, Alaska. Now, I know we shouldn't have gone, but if we didn't, then I would have nothing else to tell you about here. Anthony and I ended up making a road trip out of it, telling our parents we wanted to head to Fairbanks to visit a friend of ours. Funny enough, I know someone I went to college with who lives there. We got in Anthony's pickup, and we take my dad's handgun and 12-gauge shotgun he kept in the basement. After a day, we arrive in Fairbanks, and we check into a motel. The plan was to answer the phone the following morning, so we pretty much took it easy in the room. Fast forward 2 hours before, and we're starting to think that this was just a bad idea. But still, we convinced ourselves that if we already came this far, we weren't going to turn back. We head out around 11:30 p.m. and we go to pick up some McDonald's. From there, we make the drive out to this old abandoned rest stop with a payphone there. We now wait there anxiously awaiting the call. Finally, the time arrives, and sure enough, the phone begins to ring. This is when I go to answer it expecting silence. Meanwhile, Anthony is keeping guard. But instead, there was a voice on the other end. The person on the other end spoke with one of those voice changers to make their voice sound deeper. "I see you made it to the payphone. Congratulations. This is the end of your journey. We have an informant that will meet you in just a couple of minutes with your prize, so please stay put." Once the call ends, we get back inside the car keeping a lookout. But the only activity we see are some moose that were walking into some nearby woods. Just as we are about to leave though, a series of headlights approach from the entrance we had arrived on. Sure enough, there's an unmarked SUV approaching ever so slowly, finally stopping around 100 feet away. Anthony and I now watch as 2 men step out, each holding guns. I'm talking assault rifles. That sight sent us into a full panic mode as we now floor it, but that's not before we heard loud gunshots echoing past our windows. We were honestly so scared at that point, as we told ourselves how stupid we were for actually going out there. But luckily, we never did see them follow us. In summary, we quickly grabbed our belongings from our motel room and left the keys on the front desk with a note. We don't even bother checking out until we're 100 miles away. At this point, we had called the motel telling them about us wanting to check out via phone call, then telling them about what happened. But they were actually pretty surprised to hear that. We had heard similar things happening a couple of years ago, but they never told us about answering some phone. A couple were parked out there camping when a vehicle suddenly approached them. They ended up being mugged by the men with the assault rifles, but they were never caught. So we aren't sure if it had any connection with the deep web or not, or maybe it could have just been a coincidence and been another pair of bad people out there. Either way, we ended up trying to find the website that I originally started the game on, but it was deleted. Something tells me that there was more to this, but as I no longer go on the deep web, I can't really tell you anything else. I'll start off by saying the following. As a heads up, I'm still not sure whether or not browsing the deep web was responsible for this. This is going to be one of those stories where I'm not going to be talking about what I saw. I'm sure you already know plenty of what you can find on the dark web. That's not what I'm here to talk to you all about. This one is one of those experiences you barely hear about, the ones with the aftermath of exploring it, not so much what you can find on there. Besides, most of those stories are no sleep and they're fake, so I don't really like hearing those myself, though they are entertaining. Like I said, those aren't real. But even with all that said, I guess I can provide you with some background context. I'm female, 19 years old, and it was around November of 2017. I was looking at various websites on the dark web. I reached a site where you can buy one of those mystery boxes and almost went through with a purchase. I ended up opting out of the idea though. You see, I realized how dumb the decision would be. However, in my excitement, I had typed in my PayPal information. Yes, most sites have you use some sort of online currency, and I was ready to use it, but this one for some dumb reason let you use PayPal. This was truly what I believed caused a series of events to take place next. I was at Barnes & Noble a couple of weeks later, and I was reading a book while sitting at the Starbucks. I hadn't noticed it, but a man with a trench coat on, dark sunglasses, a hospital mask, and hat took a seat directly across from me. He looked really suspicious, but he was reading a newspaper, so I tried not to mind him too much. Eventually, I started to feel eyes on me, and I look away from the book for a second. This is where I can see what looks like the guy taking pictures of me on his phone. What really creeped me out was the expression he had. Though the mask and sunglasses were covering most of his face, you could tell just how emotionless he was. He then takes his sunglasses off and continues to stare over at me. This goes on for another minute, until he simply just gets up without saying another word and leaves. Needless to say, I was horrified, and I ended up leaving. About a month later, my friend Sarah and I were on my computer and had decided to use the deep web one more time. It's funny because I had thought I decided I would never go on it again, but I guess I don't learn. We go and return to the website where the mystery boxes were sold. I signed in to the account I made, and I noticed there was a message in the inbox. I go to open it, and there are 4 image files, as well as a message. Now, in order to view the pictures, you had to click on them so that they would load. What I saw was one of the most creepiest things I'd ever seen. There are 2 photos of me at the Starbucks from Barnes & Noble. One of the pictures was of me reading the book, and the last one was when I looked up. The last 2 pictures, though, those were worse. Both were taken from the nighttime. In one of them, you can see a home with its front porch light on. I didn't think much of it, until I zoomed in some more. There was a small table with Christmas decorations on it. They looked exactly like the ones I had. Sure enough, I even went outside to confirm it. The last image looked to be taken outside my window, and in it you can see us opening our Christmas gifts on Christmas Eve. Something then clicked in my head at that point. I remember while opening the gifts, there being a sound of footsteps outside, but when my dad went to check it out, he saw an unmarked van pull out of our driveway and ride off into the night. Now, as for the message, it said, "You still want your mystery box, am I right? I went to visit you a couple of times. I just wanted to make sure it was you. Feel free to message me and I can get you something really nice." I was so freaked out by the whole thing that I messaged him back saying that if he ever showed up in my life again, I was going to call the police. As surprised as all of you are, the activity, it actually stopped. I haven't seen any suspicious activity around my house, and I've since stopped using the deep web. But even so, something makes me think the pictures of me and my home are somewhere out there. I would really like to hope not, but I guess you just never know. As a precaution, we have installed a security system, put bars on our windows, adopted 2 very sweet but protective retired German police dogs, and I even have a concealed carry my uncle helped me get. He's a retired police officer, by the way. Anyway, I'll update you all in the future if anything else comes up. But for now, that is pretty much it. I should start by mentioning the following to you all. As of this moment, I'm actually still in hiding. Well, kind of. Although I've legally changed my name and I moved across the country, I can't help but get the chills anytime I'm home alone. This doesn't stop me from trying to live a normal life with my fiancé, but part of me regrets making a stupid decision which led to some of the creepiest months of my life. Now, for privacy reasons, I won't mention my name, where I live, nor details that can easily identify me, but I will mention that I used to be a security guard. That's not really important to my story, but it does give you an insight into my life. I worked 40+ hours a week and often worked overtime. This meant I would sleep all day, wake up, get ready to work, rinse and repeat. Well, one cold November's afternoon in 2015 of November, I finally had a day off, so I decided to use my time by logging onto the deep web, thanks in part to a buddy of mine who had showed me how to access it. I, for one, wasn't really interested in it for its gore and shock material, although there were some websites I visited that featured some of that said gore material that did fuel my nightmares. For me, it was all about the databases of information one can access. Being a tech kind of guy, I fell in love learning about things I'd never been able to find on the surface web. This included real-life unexplained mysteries. Well, I remember clicking on a link that led to a forum similar to that of Reddit. It was a website where people could make posts and other users could respond to them. I clicked on one that was focused on unexplained mysteries and spent the following hour reading posts and looking at the replies. It was during this exploration I clicked on a comment that featured a link which was supposed to take you to a chat room. I clicked on the link and I spent the next 30 seconds to a minute waiting for the page to load. I got bored, so I clicked refresh, but there was still waiting. As I had the urge to use the restroom, I left the page open and I went to take care of my business and take a piss. Well, needless to say, I returned with some popcorn and a soda. Literally within seconds of me taking a seat at my office chair, the page finally loaded. It was simply a page that featured a small chat room box in the middle. The rest of the page was black with red text at the top that said, "Let's talk." Still didn't understand why it took so damn long to load something so simple, but whatever. When I looked at how many people were in the chat, there were about 50. Quite a shocking amount of all things considered. Sorry to say, but the chat was pretty mundane and boring at first. It was just people talking about creepy things they have seen on the deep web, as well as their personal favorite websites. I decided to join in on the fun and I asked, "What? Are we just going to ask about how everyone's day is going? If I really cared, I'd go on the regular web and talk to the regular losers there." Yeah, I was kind of a jerk, but come on, this was nothing like I'd heard about in the stories on YouTube. Literally though, within seconds of my reply, somebody responds to my comment by saying, "You should be a lot more respectful here. You never know who you might be talking to." A few other comments chimed in and backed up this user, to which I called them out on their bluff. "Oh please, give me a break. If you really are some big shot, well, why don't you prove it to me?" Little did I know the big mistake I just made. They respond back with a very chilling warning. "Just so you know, I am the moderator of this website. And guess what? I have ways of finding out your personal information. And by the looks of it, I'm going to have to teach you some respect, aren't I?" More anonymous users cheered on this stranger, until just like that, the page crashes. I try to get back to the chat room, but the page never loaded for me again. It's at this point I thought, yeah, whatever. As if they could really find me in real life, huh? I soon put it behind me and explored a few more websites until I eventually signed off for the evening and went out with some friends. Fast forward about a week and it's my day off again. I was actually trying to apply for different security companies since I was unhappy with the one I was currently with. I was using the opportunity to check for any emails I might have received. I saw nothing in my inbox, which is why I checked the spam folder just to make sure. Nothing really looked professional to me, just your typical junk mail like free vacations and 30-day free trials, etc. But just before I clicked on the delete all prompt, one of the emails caught my attention. The title said something along the lines of, "I saw you at Carl's Jr." which was then followed by my first name and my last name. That sort of piqued my interest, especially since I did not recognize the email sender, so I ended up clicking on it. The email simply had 4 pictures attached to them, with a caption at the bottom that said, "See, I told you I would find you." Now, if there's one thing I know about spam emails, it's that you never by any sorts of means click on the attachments. They can be littered with bugs and viruses. But still, there was part of me that was curious and wanted to see. Thankfully, I chose not to risk my computer safety, which was why I texted every single one of my friends and asked them if they were the ones responsible for the pictures attached. I already knew this was dumb since none of the friends I hung out with knew I was on the deep web. They probably had no idea what it even was. As for the one friend who had shown me how to access it, he wasn't there that day, and we hadn't talked for almost a month at that point. Like expected, none of them had any idea what I was going on about, and suggested it was just a coincidence or something. Well, even so, that didn't describe the email containing my first and last name, which I guess I can say without revealing too much about myself, it is a common name. Well, dumbfounded, I decided to ignore the email and continue with work later that evening. Fast forward a couple of days later, and I receive a message from a user on Instagram, which was from a username I did not know. Clicking on it revealed another cryptic message similar to the one I received by email. "I saw you at Carl's Jr. the other day, and I know where you live as well. Let's talk about you disrespecting me, shall we?" Confused, I asked if this was a person who had sent me the email, to which they responded back roughly 2 hours later with, "Do you like the pictures I sent you? Don't tell me that's still not enough proof to you." I tell them I did not click on the photos, and they respond by sending me 4 photos instead. I get the chills when I'm able to clearly make out myself and my 3 friends sitting at one of the outside tables at our local Carl's Jr. However, judging by the quality and the zoom, these photos were taken at a distance. I nearly fell out of my office chair in absolute shock, thinking that this had to be some sort of prank gone wrong. But the thing is, how could it be? I didn't know what to say, but luckily I wouldn't have to say much else because the person then says, "If you tell me you're sorry and you show me some respect I deserve, I promise not to post these on the deep web, along with your information." So, wait a minute. All I had to do was apologize to this complete stranger? Even if I did, could I really trust him? What other choice did I have? In a lengthy 2 or 3 paragraph response, I give him my apologies and I promise I would never disrespect him nor anyone on the deep web ever again. I never got a response back, and I spent the next 2 weeks living in fear, thinking that they hadn't followed through with the promise. My friends and co-workers would look at me with concern and ask if I was okay, but all I could tell them was that I felt sick. Honestly, what could they do? Anyway, I arrive home one early morning after another stressful day at work, only to see an envelope had been slid about halfway through my door. I picked it up and head to the kitchen table to open it. It had the 4 pictures the Instagram user had sent me in a printed form, along with a note. It was a few sentences that said, "It's really been fun tormenting you. Nice apartment you've got, by the way. Oh yeah, just letting you know that all is forgiven. I hope to never see you on the deep web again, because next time, I won't be so friendly to you." With that, I finally got the courage to present all the information and evidence to the police department. The screenshots I took, the email, as well as the envelope. Fingerprints were taken, but nothing did come up, most likely because the person who delivered them wore gloves or something. Now, even with a thorough investigation that involved the help of multiple agencies, nothing ever did come up. So that leads us to today. Like I mentioned in the intro to my story, I've since moved and I've changed my name entirely. I keep my online footprint to a minimum, now only use the internet for research, as well as watching the occasional videos on YouTube. So to anyone out there curious about the deep web, all I can say is this. If you're going to explore its many mysteries, be very careful with how you do it. Also, don't disrespect anyone on there, because they may decide to come after you in real life. Edit. I wanted to include some further clarifications to my story. The stranger from the deep web has never made contact with me ever again, so it's hopefully safe to say he kept his promise. I've never seen any sort of strange activity around my house, nor received weird messages or phone calls. Sadly, I no longer have the screenshots due to the fact that the iPhone they were stored on got bricked. I tried to recover the photos, but since I hadn't backed them up since before the incident occurred, I ended up losing them for good. As for the original computer I'd used to access the deep web, well, that one stopped working, but that was understandable because of how long I had it for. Lastly, the Instagram user who sent me those photos no longer exists, as they deactivated their account the following day I received the message. Good thing I took those screenshots for evidence, huh? Speaking of evidence, for those asking, I'm pretty sure the police department have the photocopies I gave them, but I don't know the legality of sharing them with everyone. Can I even do that? If anyone has any insight, then please let me know, because it would be really interesting to share them with you all here. Anyway, thanks for listening to my story. What do a couple of bored college students decide to do on their weekend off, you might ask? Oh, that's right. Go on the deep web and see if it's actually possible to get your hands on one of those mystery boxes you always hear about. That's what my buddy and I decided to do one day in 2017. Unfortunately, we were, and still in a way are full of ourselves and think that nothing will scare us. But boy, we would soon be humbled by the experience, and I don't even wish this on our worst enemies. Now, to make a long story short, my friend and I actually ordered a mystery box off this really sketchy website, which allowed multiple forms of delivery. You could either have the package dropped off at a P.O. box, your address, which as you might know is a dumb idea, and then third, delivery in person. Now maybe we can scratch the delivery to your house address as dumb. Delivery in person, worst idea ever. But remember, we are these tough and dumb guys who aren't afraid of anything. Anyway, I kept in contact with a seller via email of all things, apparently thinking that I could trust them, and I gave them a general location of the city I am located in. We were told a couple of their associates would deliver the package, but the thing is, there was a catch. The delivery would have to be made early in the morning, which was to avoid any sort of unwanted attention to us. Also, I was told to sign a disclosure that if I even attempted reporting them to police, they would have no problem going after my family, which again is already a huge alarm bell. Last but least, it would have to be at a location that they chose. Now, if this already sounds like a recipe for all things to go wrong, well, you wouldn't be wrong in that assumption. The seller follows up with another email stating that it was okay not to accept these demands and the money would be refunded to me. I was given 48 hours to respond, but like you might have guessed, we went through with the purchase instead. Fast forward to the evening of the deal. We drive an hour out of the city to this ghost town out in the desert. Both my buddy and I sat in the car, eagerly awaiting the arrival of the delivery driver. Now, I should note, both of us were armed with knives and mace, just in case things went south. Well, finally, after waiting almost 25 minutes, an unmarked minivan pulls up in front of my truck. No kidding. 5 men armed with assault rifles jump out of the back seat, and they begin approaching our vehicle. One thing was definitely for sure now. We had not signed up for anything like this. We floor it out of there. never looking back. Fast forward an hour later, and I get an email from the seller asking why we drove away from the delivery. Both my friend and I were astonished, as we did not realize that was part of the deal. The seller tells me that if we did not pay a penalty fee for wasting their time, well, there would be serious trouble for the both of us. Considering the fact they went to such crazy means to make the delivery, we don't question him any further. Unfortunately, they got my friend and I for an extra $1,000 in fees, but I guess it was worth it to ensure our safety. Which, update, we have never gone on the deep web again, nor have we had any contact with that seller. I remember this like it was just yesterday. I was on a scary stories binge and watching my favorite narrators retelling people's experiences from the deep web. I reached a point where I couldn't contain my curiosity anymore, so I decided to learn how to reach the deep web myself. Now I'll save you all the fillers so I don't make this submission too long, but I got on and immediately got to researching a few links I'd found. First, it was a website about buying different substances and guns. It listed a bunch of prices, as well as the sorts of services they offered. I soon grew bored and went to a video website. I ended up finding a video that was titled, Join Us. It consisted of a series of what I like to best describe as promo videos. They seeked to recruit people for strange cults that I had never heard of before. I actually tried looking them up on the regular surface web, like on Wikipedia for example, but I cannot find any articles or websites about it. Now, I'd give you the name of the cult, but the thing is I don't want to risk the creepy fox getting any sort of strange messages from them. I highly doubt it, but you can never be too safe now, can you? Anyway, at the end of each video was an email that you could message them at. Yes, dumb me actually decided to give them a message and ask if this was a true real cult or just some sort of elaborate video series made by a bunch of bored kids. To my surprise, I get an automated email response almost instantly, which advised me I would soon be connected with a recruiter. I waited, and about 15 minutes later, I got a response back. They tell me about the process of joining, which included the information I would need to reply back with in order to be part of their so-called society. Now, let's face it, I wasn't really going to give them my personal information. So to mess with them, I made up some random information and sent that in, telling them to have a nice day. I never received a response back. Fast forward a few nights later, and I was having trouble falling asleep. I blamed it on the date I had a few hours ago that saw me drinking some pretty strong espresso along with my girlfriend. Well, I want to say it was around 2 or 3 in the morning that my cell phone started to ring. Silly me had forgotten to put it on silent. Well, not thinking much about it and checking the caller ID, I answer it in my typical grumpy voice, only to be met with heavy breathing. I responded back with, "Hello? Who is this?" "Look, pal, if you're not going to say anything, then don't call me ever again." They hung up. Whatever. I thought that must have just been a wrong number or something. 5 minutes later, I am awoken from my struggling slumber to another phone call. Now I'm starting to get pretty pissed off. I respond with some not so kind words, only to be met with music playing. Now, I'm not talking about the greatest hits or anything. This music was played backwards, and it sounded really creepy, like some sort of weird nursery rhyme song or something. 10 seconds of this playing, I once again say hello, which was only to be met with a voice. It sounded as if it was coming from one of those voice filters you hear in videos. Why would you send us false information? We were generally hoping that you would take our offer and join our group. Would you still like to join us? I freaked out. I instantly hung up and I blocked the number, checking my doors and windows, making sure that they were locked. Not sure why I did that. It's not like the person who called showed up to my house, but I guess it was just instinct in that moment. Safe to say, I got no sleep at that moment, so instead I went over to my girlfriend's house, where I had to explain over the following 10 minutes why I suddenly showed up to her place freaked out. She was just as horrified as I was, but we tried to write it off as just some sort of prank. Fast forward to when I later returned to my house, I saw there was a missed call on my apartment house phone. Yeah, I was still one of those who had a landline. It's because it came packed with phone and cable and internet. Already forgetting the creepy call from earlier in the morning, I play the message expecting to hear some sort of telemarketer. Instead, it's the deep voice from earlier asking me why I was playing so hard to get. I completely lost it. I went to the police and had them ask my phone provider if they could do some sort of reverse phone search on it. Unfortunately, they were unable to trace the call. Now, here's the strange part. Almost as soon as this all began, it suddenly stopped. I no longer received any further communication from this group, nor did I ever get an email response back. I still have the email in case anyone is interested in seeing it. I can even send anyone a screenshot if you want proof. Edit. I have no clue how they got my number, although I do have some theories. I hadn't realized it until recently, but when you send emails using an email, well, it displays your name, and for some reason I thought it only displayed your email address. I guess that was how they looked me up. I mean, it's not a far stretch considering how easy it is for people to find out more information about you these days. But I don't know, I'm curious. What do all of you think? Scary stories should be just that. Stories. Experiences you'll listen to that remind you that, wow, the world sure can be creepy, isn't it? You hope that you never have to experience something like the people in the stories do. That's why when this happened, I was scared for months, and even 2 years later after writing this, I'm reminded of it anytime I listen to something scary. Now it seems like I'm rambling here, but when I first heard rumors of a secret hidden internet, I was left with more questions than answers. The deep web was sort of like a legend amongst our friends. It was never meant to be taken seriously or anything, and we never thought it was a real place at all. However, little research into the topic shows that, indeed, there is a place that isn't indexed by the normal web browsers. A place where bad people can do bad things and get away with whatever evil schemes they had planned. The secret playground of sorts remained undiscovered until one day my friend and I decided to finally check it out. Of course, we went into it with just a few hours of research. I mean, we could have just looked up some creepy sites, get our fill of whatever we could find, and that be the end of it. And anyway, the adventure began. We got a VPN, got Tor, and for the next couple of hours we started to unravel the mysteries of the deep web. Now, being the amateurs we were, we clicked on random links until one of them finally piqued our curiosity. This website that we clicked on acted sort of like a photo library of sorts. Most of these photos appear to be innocent, random photos of people going on with their daily lives. It was kinda weird though, because some of these pictures had webcam quality. It's as if the photos were taken from someone's computer and then posted for anyone to see them. This was when we started to piece things together. This was an archive of photographs that had been taken, most likely without the knowledge of the person in them. Well, after scrolling for a bit, my friend stopped me. Wait, go back up. Something seems rather familiar. And so we scrolled up for about 5 seconds, and there she was. We could not believe our eyes. Emily, a friend from high school, was sitting in front of her computer, but just to confirm, we click on the photo to expand it even more. Sure enough, you can see the same music posters in the background from what I remembered her having. No, this was a mistake, right? This had to be some sort of joke. But how could it be? And what were the chances Emily posted this on the deep web of all places? Well, confused and shocked, we ended up taking a photo and sending it to her. Then she answers a few minutes later with a very chilling response. Where did you two get this photo from? That's what we wanted to know. We found it on this really weird website. Which website is it? That's the thing. You just can't randomly find it. We tell Emily we could show her if she had time for FaceTime, and thus 5 minutes later we reveal the identity of this creepy site. As expected, Emily told us that photo was never posted anywhere, but what really sent a chill was when we told her the backstory of how we uncovered these images. Emily was so scared that someone had gotten into her computer that immediately she unplugs it, covers the webcam with a sticker, and then says she wanted to come over in the next few days to see this website in person. Meanwhile, we couldn't really figure out what to do. I mean, even if we did call the police and go to them, was there anything that could have been done? Well, fast forward a few days later, and we're trying to find the same link. The page was deleted along with the photos. And so, the mystery remained. Who the hell had acquired these images? And why the hell is the website missing now? Also, how long had that website been up for? It's now been almost 2 years. We've never gone back to check. Update. A lot of people have been wondering if I still do have those pictures I took on my screen that I sent to Emily. Sadly, since I do have a new phone, the text messages containing those images, well, they have been lost to time. So, how did I hear about the deep web? Well, after all, it's not something you just show up to school one day and all the popular kids are going on how creepy and exciting it is. No, I ended up hearing about the deep web after accidentally stumbling upon it on a couple of articles. I laughed because most of the claims seemed like just some sort of stupid joke. Taking this into consideration, I mentioned it to a friend in class and he says, "Wait, this is the first time you heard about the deep web? I thought by now you would at least recognize the name. You really don't want to mess with that. It's very serious." I, being the naive one, called him out on the statement, and I wanted to prove just how silly this whole stupid deep web thing was. Now to save you details, I was able to get to it, and it was very boring. It was nothing like the videos and articles described on YouTube, so I'd forgotten about the deep web for months. That's when I realized I was doing things completely wrong. There was a way to go even further, and by doing so, you would get even better results on the deep web. So I made it my mission to uncover more and more mysteries on the deep web. And yes, I was able to find some pretty creepy places. One day I was browsing because I wanted to get a mystery box. I clicked on some links I found, but me being the clumsy one I am, I accidentally clicked on the wrong link. This webpage took about 20 or so seconds to load, and when it does, there's an empty video player in the middle. That's when a few moments later, I noticed something there. The little green light on my webcam suddenly turned on, and soon I'm the one featured in the video box. Then I kid you not, it starts snapping photos. I was confused. Did I accidentally open my photo app? No, that damn thing was closed. Quickly, I put my hand over the webcam, but by then it was already too late. Try as I could, the website just would not close, and my computer ended up crashing at that point. Finally, I unplugged the computer entirely, and I remember just sitting there wondering, how can a website seemingly just take over your camera and start snapping away like that? I wasn't sure, but what made things creepier was what happened about 2 weeks later. I was going through my email checking the junk mail folder, and I saw a message from someone I did not recognize. Attached were 5 photos. Since this was in the junk mail, I was kind of curious on whether or not I should actually open them. Well, after about 10 minutes of trying to distract myself with funny videos, my curiosity finally caught up to me, and I opened them, and I could not believe what I saw. They were photos of me. One had me looking at my computer screen, and the others were me in a panic trying to cover the webcam. I wasn't sure how this happened, but I never received a response when emailing them back. But then I remember thinking about what happened before. Anyway, it's been over 3 years, and there has not been any further updates to this. One day, by myself, I'd found a website that claimed to send mystery boxes in the mail on the deep web. They're supposed to contain random items and substances, which I thought was, I guess, kind of interesting. Another thing to note was this website also appeared to have a support email. It's here I assumed people could have their questions answered. So the next couple of days I kept bouncing around with the idea on whether or not I should order one of these mystery boxes from the deep web. Yeah, I know I shouldn't have ordered anything from the deep web, but part of me was genuinely curious about the thing. Before ordering one of those boxes, I actually messaged the owner of the website with the email that was provided. Note, I ended up using a new email just for safety purposes. Hey, I was wondering if you could tell me more information about these mystery boxes you're selling. I'm just curious, are there certain themes you provide? I saw on your website that you have monthly themes. About an hour later, I actually got a response. The person that responds claims to be the owner of the website. They tell me that indeed there were different themes of items and packages that could be sent. I was really into scary and creepy movies at the time, and I wanted to know if there was something along those lines. They respond a few minutes later by saying, "Oh yeah, that's a really popular theme we have. If you'd like to order one of those care packages, then let me know. I can go ahead and get it to you as soon as possible." Yeah, I'll go ahead and think about it. I appreciate the information. Fast forward a week later, and I had lost interest in ordering the box. That's until one day my friend comes over and says we should go check out some of the more creepy websites on the deep web. That's when I remembered the box I was supposed to order. I went ahead and showed my friend the site, and he told me that we should order a box. He says, "Come on, let's order something. Here, I'll help you out and I'll pay half. You can pay the remaining amount." So convinced, I decided to go check my email so that I could message the owner once more. There is an email from him, and he says, "Hey, I haven't heard back from you in a few days. I was just wondering if you were still interested in ordering a box from us. I have a few more left. It's gonna take me a while to get more of these boxes ready, so I hope to hear from you soon." The next message told me that he had one more box specifically designed for me, and he was willing to save it if I responded in the next following 48 hours. He even left a phone number for me to call him at. Big mistake, I know, but I ended up calling this number. Of course, I didn't do it from my actual cell phone. I used Skype and called from there. There's no response at first, and I was starting to think that this was a waste of time and it's a scam. A second time I go ahead and call, and they responded almost immediately. To my surprise, the guy sounded pretty normal. He didn't have a creepy deep voice or menacing tone to him. He just started telling me that he was just a college dropout who was trying to make some extra money selling items. When wanting to know why he didn't sell things on the normal web, he told me, "Oh, yeah, well, if I did that, let's just say I would get in a lot of trouble for some of the things I send. Plus, I want to remain anonymous so no one can track me down. Anyway, you ready to order?" Well, with pressure from my friend, I agreed to it. We make the order, and he tells me it should arrive within a week. The week passes, and when returning from work, I noticed a medium-sized beat-up box at my front door. There were no logos or signage indicating it was from the box I'd ordered, so I just assumed it was, and I called my friend over. An hour later, we're in the kitchen, ready to open up this bad boy. Well, after struggling to get all the tape off, the moment had finally arrived. We opened the box, and were welcomed with one of the most terrible smells you could ever think of and imagine. It smelled like a combination of iron and garbage and rotten eggs. Let me describe what was in there for you all. There was a various amount of creepy old looking dolls, each of them marked with cult-like symbols on their forehead. Next were books that appeared to have red stains on them like blood. I opened them and there were a bunch of old Polaroid pictures too. Some of those images were pretty graphic and they depicted what looked to be like rituals from cults. Next was a Ziploc that appeared to contain some sort of powdery white substance. We didn't end up opening this one as we thought it could harm us. Next were some strands of hair and old fingernail clippings that looked like they had been kept around for decades. One whiff of it explained the nasty smell that we were getting. Lastly, and most disturbingly, was what looked to be like a picture of my house and even a picture of me. There was a note attached to that said, "If you reveal any of this to the police, then I have ways of tracking you down. I wouldn't want them knowing about the source of these items. I found them at the old mental hospital in the abandoned patient's room. Oh yeah, as you can see, I have visited your house before. We wouldn't want any serious issues now, would we?" I mean, he had a point, but what really got to us was questioning who the hair and the fingernails might have belonged to. Possibly an old patient? Of course, this would have been the smart time to give all of this to the police, but I did forget to mention one thing. A couple of things, actually. For starters, I made the mistake of trusting the seller and giving him my address. Yeah, stupidest idea in my life. Another thing was that he told me he would remain kind as long as I kept our sale a secret. He told me he had ways of tracking me down, even if I did move out of state. This convinced me enough to remain quiet about the items he sent me. Regardless, my friend and I were so creeped out by what he sent, I demanded a refund. Well, he told me that all sales were final and there wasn't much else I could do. Figures that would be the case. Instead, my friend and I decided to burn everything and try to forget about it. Fast forward a year later, and by this point I'd moved to another state. My friend and I no longer talked as much, and I no longer went on the deep web. One day while at home, I heard someone knocking at my door. I was in the shower, so I didn't respond right away. About 20 minutes later, I go outside and there is a letter on the doormat. The letter had my name on it, and when I open it, I'm shocked by who the sender claimed to be. They claimed to be the person who sent me the mystery box almost a year ago at that point. The letter said, "Hey, I found you. Just wanted to remind you to keep our sale a secret. Hope you don't have any funny ideas." I finally had enough and ended up going to the police to tell them about it. I explained what I had done, and they weren't too happy about it. Ultimately, they told me there wasn't much they could do. It's now been over 2 years, and I have not heard anything. I'm kind of hoping that guy was caught, because part of me was thinking he might have had bad intentions in mind with me. Now, I don't have much proof to provide, but I do have some photos on my old phone that I could send in. I also have the emails he sent me as well. I just have to remember my email and password. Regardless, do let me know if you guys want to see those images, and I'll make sure to share them in the future. Thanks for listening. What a way to ruin a perfectly great computer. I mean, what could I possibly mess up this time? Those are things I told myself before my computer I built on my own had pretty much died. A few years ago, I'd finally built the computer of my dreams. It was a project that took me about 6 months in total to save up money for everything, and I stayed up drinking Monster energy drinks and eating potato chips. When the project was complete, this bad boy was unlike anything else on the market that you would see, customized down to every single little thing. Now, those things are little details I mentioned just to give you a bit of tease to what I want to talk to you all about. After all, I'm titling this entry as my own deep web experience. There has to be some sort of deep web shenanigans happening, correct? And yeah, you'd be right. There are deep web shenanigans that happen in this one. This was a few years ago when the craze of the deep web really started to take off. However, when I would see someone upload a video about the deep web and them supposedly being true, I took it with a grain of salt and I laughed my ass off. Nothing against the stories, as they're entertaining and all that, but what I want to tell you about is something 100% true that actually happened. I gain absolutely nothing from making this up, and I'm not looking for fame or even a shout out. I just really want this to be heard. But alright, one day I decided to explore the deep web using Tor once I'd done enough research for it. I looked up some basic websites and everything was pretty boring. It was literally pages and pages of archives and databases. My question was, where in the hell was all this scary stuff at? Eventually, I stumbled onto a forum that reminded me of something sort of like Reddit. There were articles and entries where people could post their favorite deep web websites. Most were on how to buy different products, such as illegal substances and weapons and the like. But since I was not looking to get in any sort of trouble, I was mainly looking to see if I could find a website with scary images. My requests were answered when I found a post where people could put different links with captions on them and exactly what they contained as well. I scrolled down toward the bottom of the page and I clicked on one that said, "Scary videos to watch in the dark." I clicked on it thinking, well, alright, finally. Let's see what it has to offer. But then things started happening. Yes, I was taken to this pretty boring looking website with just a few videos and text boxes, but then my computer started to slow down. And I mean, really slow down. Then my worst fear, a bunch of pop-ups from my security comes up saying that there were viruses. Well, great, that's exactly what I needed right now. I really thought that Tor was supposed to protect me, but I guess I was wrong. Luckily, I was able to restart it, but sadly my computer wasn't the same after that. Anytime I would try to open Tor, it would just crash my computer. So I guess my deep web exploring was done for now. But that's just the beginning of my ordeal. You fast forward about a week, and I noticed a notification on my Facebook. Facebook was something I rarely used, and had I not checked the notification, well, I would have never seen it. It's a message. I open it and it's from a person that had no profile picture, and when I clicked on it, the page was empty. So, what did the message contain, you might be asking? You know, you're pretty dumb for leaving your webcam and microphone on. I wasn't sure what that was about, but out of curiosity, I messaged the user back. I wanted to know which friend this was and what exactly this prank was all about. I then go about my day not expecting much. But later that night, I see there is a reply. I am not one of your friends, but might I say you're not too hard on the eyes. Seriously? Is this Daniel? Come on, man, I already told you the prank is over. I'm referring to a prank I pulled on my online friend Daniel when I claimed to be this really beautiful girl that was in love with him. It seemed he was doing the same thing back. Now, just so we get one thing straight here, we are friends from Xbox, and I had never given him my address. This person sends a message back and starts giving me detail by detail on what I looked like, where I lived, my full name, telephone number, as well as the school I went to. Of course, a friend still could have been doing this to me, but it's what he says next that really set the mood and the tone of everything. Like I said, I am not one of your friends. I know you because you clicked on the link I posted on that deep web forum. I was then able to run a program that took over your computer, and since you were stupid enough to keep your webcam and microphone on, well, I was able to get a good look at you. I even took the time to get some information on you. Honestly, I wasn't sure how that was possible, but after hearing and reading of other people's experiences, I learned there is a way these people can find you. I got so scared that I wasn't sure what to do, so I decided to block them and trash my entire computer. Things then went silent for the next few weeks, and I figured even with all these details adding up, it could have possibly still been some sort of prank. Well, one day something happened that really was very creepy. My parents had received a phone call from a stranger saying that they had kidnapped me, and unless they sent over $10,000, I would never be seen or heard from again. Thank God they chose to call my phone number because while they had this creep on the line, I did a FaceTime with my mother. I showed her I was at the beach with friends, and we knew that this person was making the story up. Once the realization hits that this person was lying, my dad tells them they're going to call the police. Then the phone went silent, and he's never heard from again. It's now been over 2 years since writing this that this has happened, and I now live in another state, and nothing else has occurred. Now, even though we told the police and they tried to trace the number, they could not find the origin of the phone call. We're guessing this person moved on since we figured out his plan, but I'm just really hoping he isn't trying to scam any other curious people on the internet. Oh, and I did talk to my friends, including Daniel from Xbox. None of them had any idea that I was on the deep web. Just how exactly is that saying go about curiosity? How it can get you into some serious trouble? Well, that's a situation I found myself back in 2015. Now, I'm not going to be boring and explain all the crazy details. I'm just going to jump right into it. One afternoon, I was deep web browsing. My goal this time was to see if I could order a mystery box, and so I clicked around on some links, and after about 20 minutes I found what I was looking for. Unfortunately though, they were really overpriced, and thus I decided I changed my mind. Thus I looked around for some other websites, and I found one with more reasonable pricing. When I go to click on the order button, a random pop-up appeared. Now, try as I might, it did not want to close. So I feared my computer crashed or got hacked, or there was a virus installed. After a couple of minutes, the computer unfreezes though, and the pop-up that appeared a minute before loads a simple page with a chat box. The chat box was empty, mind you. Well, me being the stupid dumb teenager I was, I typed in random words, and 10 seconds later there's a response. "Thank you for reaching customer service, Matthew Phillips. How can we help you this afternoon?" Now, I know what you're wondering. Who the hell is Matthew Phillips? Well, let's just say that would be me. I got the chills reading that. I mean, how in the world did this person on the other end know my name? And what did they want? I typed in, yeah, very funny there, pal. That's not my name. Nice try, though. They then responded by listing my home address as well as my telephone number. Well, didn't you know that we can get that information from when you try to make an order here? After all, you're looking to order with us, correct? We just want to ensure that we do good business with you. Now, here's the thing. I never put in any sort of information, so how did they get it? One thing that didn't happen was them saying they would come take me away or kidnap me or give my information out to complete strangers. So I guess that was one good thing? But how could I believe them? Nonetheless, I was creeped out, so I immediately closed the browser and I began pondering how this person got my information. Then I noticed I had not closed my Facebook and my Firefox. I mean, could it have been possible they somehow were able to see my screen and then control it while my computer was frozen? I mean, I guess that would explain that. Still, I tried to take what the person on the other end told me seriously. After all, many months passed and I never received any sort of confirmation anyone was after me. But then one day someone left a voicemail on my phone. I didn't recognize the number, but I listened to it anyway. It went something like this. "Hello there, Matthew. I'm calling to let you know we have discounts on some of our newest inventory on the mystery boxes. You are more than welcome to reach us back at this number just in case you're interested in it. We hope to hear from you soon." I could not believe it. It had been months since I was last on the deep web, and I had completely forgotten all about that strange chat. Now, let's get one thing straight here. No friends knew I tried to grab myself one of those boxes. So for this person to go out of their way to check up on me months later and tell me they had a discount, it was very creepy in itself. Well, when I did do a phone search, it turned out it came from a computer. It's been 4 years. I've yet to receive another call from them again. This was way before the deep web was a popular search term like it is today. Now, for privacy reasons, and for fear of my own safety, I won't reveal too many details about myself, but I will say I'm male and I was 19 years old. So, in order to properly tell you all about this, I must take you back to 10 years ago, summertime. I was in summer school taking a math prerequisite, and things were pretty normal for the first few days. Then I met one of my classmates, who we will call Juan. Juan and I got along quite famously, as both of us were really into computers. Now, little did I know that meeting Juan that summer would lead to one of the scariest times of my life. I remember the hours that we would spend after class sitting on campus, and we would just mess around trying out various programs. On one of our days off, Juan called me wanting to know if I wanted to come over to his apartment and hang out together. Considering I had nothing better to do, we ordered a pizza and browsed the internet. After a few minutes, Juan told me, "Hey, I don't think I've shown you this yet, but have you ever heard about the deep web?" Confused, I say, "No, I don't think I have. What is that?" He begins to explain all the ins and outs about the deep web, saying he only just recently stumbled upon it himself after one of his friends told him how to get to it using something called Tor. His friends even said he ordered a supposed mystery box, which contained a bunch of stolen iPods, DVDs, as well as gift cards. In fact, he even showed me a picture of it right there and then on his phone. I thought it was pretty neat, although looking back, that was a terrible idea. Well, why don't we order something? I mean, nothing too crazy, right? Bear in mind, I still didn't know too much about the deep web and its dangers. I figured it was just a playground for computer nerds like myself to send things anonymously. Juan was more or less new to the deep web, but he ended up texting his friend wanting to know about the website. He text messages us a few minutes later, and we tried searching for it. Unfortunately though, the website no longer existed. So we once again message him, to which he responds with, "Oh, well, try this one instead. I didn't order anything from it, but they got a lot of different products that are exclusive to their website." So we type it in, and after almost a minute of it loading, we are brought to a simple looking shop. On the top, there is a title that says, "The Goods," with an email right below it, and other contact information. After that, you scroll down, and there are various pictures of different boxes, each with different titles, themes, as well as their prices. Some of them range from as little as $20 all the way up to $1,000. Mind you, they were using an online currency, not actual dollars. Well, we decided that we would end up ordering one. It was hospital themed, claiming to have stolen items from an abandoned hospital, all for the low price of $40. With all that said, we still weren't too comfortable with giving some stranger our address, so we used the email to contact them. "Hey, we aren't too sure, but is there a way we can meet up in person and buy it from you? Both my friend and I are interested in this, but we aren't too comfortable with giving out our address." An hour later, we get a response from the seller. "Well, I could have that arranged for y'all. However, it's going to cost you an extra $50 on top of the $40, plus other fees. How about $100 in total?" Now, since we were young and dumb, we didn't think too much about the money and just said, "Yeah, sure, $100 is fine. When can we arrange a pickup?" We give him the name of the town next to us, once again for our safety, and he says he can have someone that lives about an hour away from there that can make the delivery in a week. Yeah, up to this point, we haven't realized how stupid we were with going through with this purchase. But you have to realize, we were pretty naive back then. But I digress. So the day and time arrives, and Juan and I head to a park that we arranged the pickup at. We get there 20 minutes before, both with some knives, and we keep watching and looking for any signs of movement. Bear in mind, it's 10 at night, and we haven't seen any cars nor people. As the time of the delivery drew closer, both myself and Juan were starting to regret our decision. However, we were able to calm ourselves down, saying that there are two of us, both armed, so what was the worst that could possibly happen to us? At a bit past 10:30, we can see what looks like an unmarked SUV with a missing license plate and tinted out windows, which slowly approach the entrance to the parking lot. We now watch as it inches ever so closely to our Jeep. Finally, the brakes are set, and it parks about 30 feet from our Jeep. Since they already knew the type of car we were in, I'm sure the delivery driver had no problem with identifying who the buyers were, the buyers being us. After 20 or so seconds, a man with a bandana over his face comes knocking over to our window. We pull the window down, and this was when he now says, "Delivery for you. Your total is $100. Let's see the money first." Now I forgot to mention, but I told the seller I would pay in cash, to which he said that was fine. We hand it over, he counts it, and then says, "Okay, I'll be right back. Let me go get your stuff." He returns 15 seconds later with a medium-sized box covered in tape. I don't even get a chance to say thank you as he gets back in his SUV, and both Juan and I are starting to drive out of there. However, this wasn't quite the end of this story. It was about to get a whole lot worse. Give it about 5 minutes, and we started to notice a vehicle that kept following us. I only noticed it because I happened to look in the rearview mirror. Something about it really seemed familiar, and as it passed a street lamp, I recognized it. It was the same SUV from earlier. Well, needless to say, we both started to get a bit freaked out, but we figured perhaps the delivery man was using the same route to get on the freeway. Just in case though, we decided to make some random turns to try and shake him off. That seems to work, as we no longer saw him. So finally, with our mystery box in hand, we grab some heavy-duty gloves, masks, and scissors, and we begin our unboxing. Inside, we ended up finding some really weird things, to say the least. There appeared to be some needles, along with what looked to be some sort of red fluid. Then we could see some strands of hair that were in a Ziploc. Next, there was a cookbook, some used utensils, and a teddy bear, of all things. The teddy bear was probably the weirdest sight for us. Well, with that curiosity that we already had, we decided to open it up, and inside, there was a note. The note said, "You found the secret message. Congratulations. Thank you for your business." That was it for the night. Fast forward a few days later, and Juan and I are having a bro night playing Call of Duty over at his apartment. It's around 2 in the morning, and there is a knock at the door all of a sudden. Finding it strange, Juan goes over to answer it, and to his surprise, it was him. What do I mean? The delivery man from a couple of days ago. He is demanding that we give him more money as he didn't end up getting enough from us. Well, that's weird. We gave him what they expected. Well, it turns out he thought the extra money was going to him, but instead it was going to the seller instead. I guess it was supposed to act like some sort of tip. He demands we give him another $100, otherwise things were going to get bad. Both my friend and I are really scared at this point, so Juan tells him he was going to call the police on him. Although looking back, it was going to be really difficult to explain this. Why this freak was out to get us, all of that. Well, he starts yelling, which causes some neighbors to walk outside, finding the commotion odd. From there, he just walks down the stairs, and he leaves. We did end up calling the police, and we told them someone had been stalking my friend Juan. We even worked with a sketch artist too. That was the last time both my friend Juan and I had an encounter with him, and it was the final time we had ever used the deep web. Still, even all these years later, we do keep in contact. Both of us now live hundreds of miles from our original city, but we can't help but feel nervous. We feel nervous that somebody might still be out there trying to get to us. I surely hope not. My reasoning is because maybe the seller thought it would be too risky if the police found him. Not that I could really blame him for that. So my advice is learn from me. Don't use the deep web, and take my experience as a warning to all of you. To start you off with some basic information, I am a normal 26-year-old who lives by himself in an apartment. Learn from me though. If you're thinking to yourself, oh, how bad could the deep web be? Just know, it's as bad as the stories say they are. Now, I don't claim to be a deep web expert or anything. Actually, the only reason I learned about it was because I watched some documentaries. I was never actually intending on exploring what was available. But of course, this wouldn't be a scary deep web story, would it, if there wasn't some exploration involved? Well, I watched some how-tos, and eventually I was able to find something. However, that something was pretty boring. So, where was all this scary stuff I kept hearing about? Turned out, I was looking in all the wrong places. So I ended up messaging a friend of mine on PlayStation who knew a bit more about it. He recommended I visit the dark web instead. Guess both of them were different. Well, oh boy, did I find some really creepy stuff. I remember the first site he sent me to was a shop that sold dolls. But the thing is, these were not any normal dolls. Apparently, they were said to contain the life force of someone who had died. Talk about creepy. So I moved on to another one my friend gave me. This one was a video site where you could watch really grainy videos. I watched one that was a slideshow of various creepy images, which was playing with some music that was playing backward. Every few seconds, there would be a message. Finally, at the end, I determined it to be some sort of just online ARG. Neat, but not something I was really interested in. Lastly, I decided to visit a forum that acted sort of like a market. A market where people posted links to various different websites and sold their so-called products. I went ahead and clicked on one, and what I saw on the other end was a sight I would never forget. Simply put, there was a picture of someone laying flat on the ground. Standing behind them was someone in the background wearing a mask with red bloodstains all over his t-shirt and jeans. Underneath the photo was a caption that said, "You're next." Who the hell did he think he was? Goldberg in his prime in WCW in the 90s? Creepy and weird, but it took me a few seconds to realize the person laying on the ground, well, to put it quite frank, as much as it scares me to say, had died. Well, that was enough deep web exploring for me. I closed the program, but that's not before my computer crashed. Well, great. Sadly, I was never able to get it to work properly. You see, anytime I would try to start it up, I was given an error message and a blue screen, so pretty much the computer was worthless. A bummer, but I was going to upgrade my computer at this point anyway, so whatever. But even with all those things I mentioned, I haven't even gotten to the worst part of my story. Fast forward a week, and by this point I'd done my best to put the scary things I had seen behind me. I had even told my friend, who even he thought the whole computer crashing thing was a bit ominous. Anyway, I was watching some Netflix on my PlayStation, and that's when I hear a familiar noise. It's the chiming my phone makes whenever someone is calling me. But here's the thing, it's past 3 in the morning. Why would any family or friend be calling me at this hour? Unless of course there was some sort of emergency. Regardless, I ignore it thinking perhaps it was just a telemarketer who was trying to sell me stupid things. Give it another 2 minutes, and the phone rings again. Annoyed, I pause the movie I was watching and I head over. As expected, it was not a family member, nor a friend. It was from an unknown number. Annoyed, I decided to pick it up anyway, and I say, "Look dude, you've got some nerve calling me this late. You need to knock it off, and call back another time." What I hear on the other end was terrifying. Literally the second, or I guess you could say the millisecond I stopped speaking, backwards music started playing. Here's the thing, I heard one of those songs in the videos I watched on the deep web. I immediately end the call, but they call me back a third time. Again, I answer, and some man on the other end literally says my entire full name. I froze. Who the hell was this guy? And how did they know my name? Even so, how did they get my number? And how did they know to play the same music? These were questions that were going 100 miles in my head as I now try to comprehend this madness. The call ends with a laugh before he finally says, "I can't wait to speak to you again." I'll tell you, I could not sleep that night, so I stayed up looking outside the window with my baseball bat. Not that I think the person was really going to find me, right? Well, following morning, I messaged my friend from PlayStation on his Instagram, but he tells me he was nowhere near home. Bear in mind, we have never given our phone numbers to each other. But sure enough, I didn't want to believe his posts. He was in Hawaii with his girlfriend and her family. So weird, but one thing you should know is he is the nicest dude I've ever met, and he's not someone to play pranks with me like this. Besides, he didn't have my number. So who was the person that called? Well, I don't know, but it's weird because for the following weeks, I would keep getting calls from unknown numbers. Each time I answered, there was nothing but breathing and different creepy music playing. Eventually, though, I moved back home with my parents, and I changed my number entirely, and the activity seemed to have stopped, just like that. I don't know what else to tell you all. Should I feel better knowing I haven't heard anything in months and years? Or should I maybe tell the police? Then again, are they going to believe it? And are they going to do anything about it? Some serious responses down below in the comments section would really be appreciated. I know this is a long shot and it's weird to ask for help on here, but I'm kind of lost. For some background information on myself, I'm female, 22 years old, and I live in northern Wales. This was in late 2015. At the time, I was living with two other roommates. We will call them George and Emma. George was a pretty shy person who spent the majority of his time working inside his office, which was okay because he was always nice to us. Emma and I both worked at a coffee shop about 20 minutes of a walk from our apartment. That information, well, it's not really important. It's just a bit of background so you know us a little bit. Anyway, one day while Emma was at work, I was home working on an art project, and George was in his room. After working on my scrapbook, I realized I needed a stapler, but mine had just run out of staples. So instead of going to the store, I go and knock on George's door, seeing if he had a stapler. He does, and he invites me in. That's where I noticed he was watching some videos on his computer. I say, "Hey, what are you watching, a scary movie?" "No, actually it's a little bit different. Ever heard of the deep web? It's pretty much this place where you can look at things you can't find on the normal web." Confused, he shows me some different sites, and I remember joking around and saying, "You shouldn't be looking at the gory stuff, man. Watch, I bet you someone's going to come knocking at the door and they're going to kill us." That should have been the end of the conversation, but this story keeps going. You see, we fast forward a couple of days later, and this time George and Emma had gone out to the store. I was by myself, sick, and laying in bed listening to some audiobooks. Eventually, I got to the point where I was bored, and remembered George had a bunch of movies on his USB drive. I figured I would go and grab it, and he wouldn't mind. Besides, we were always open and honest with one another. I head over to his room and see that the USB is still plugged into his computer. Sweet. I grab it, and now I return to my room. Oh, and this detail might not seem too important, but I promise it is. I was wearing a Ramones t-shirt. Remember that detail. With that, fast forward 2 months, and by this point George had since moved out, and it was just myself and Emma. While up at night watching TV, Emma and I started to hear what sounds like the front window being opened. We both found it odd, but tried our best to ignore it. However, we couldn't ignore it when we heard a familiar voice. It sounded just like the security guard who was in charge of patrolling our apartments. We can hear him call out to someone, then the sounds by our window go silent. Moments later, we can hear a struggle. We go to open the door, and there is someone in a hoodie wrestling with our security guard friend. Luckily, his co-worker had heard the commotion and had come to help. Eventually, police officers were called, and he was taken in. In summary, here is what happened. They found a minivan that this creep had drove here in. It was filled with various photos that were taken from my social media. There was even a screen capture of me wearing the Ramones t-shirt the day I went to grab the USB drive. That was one of the creepiest details ever. But how was it possible? We can't say 100% for sure, But what if this dude was from the deep web? A lot of the details do match up. Now, I've heard about stories of people doing this, but I never thought it would actually happen to us. Regardless, nothing else as creepy as this has ever happened to us again. Now, this one is a little bit shorter than the others you've heard, because I'm just going to get straight to the point to what happened. It's not as scary as some of the other deep web stories you might have heard here, but I figured it was still worth a mention. Also, whether or not this has to do with the deep web, I'm not exactly too sure. Maybe you guys could answer this one for me. This could just be a coincidence. Basically, I was on the deep web, my computer crashed, and it was pretty much as slow as a snail. Even after deleting the program I used to browse it, my computer still would not work properly. It was fine because I was looking at getting a new laptop as this computer was easily 12 years old at that point. How it even let me do things I did on there? Yeah, let's just say it was very surprising to say the least. Anyway, a few weeks later, the phone calls began. The first one was just heavy breathing for about 10 seconds before the call finally ended. Whatever, wrong number, I thought. On the second night, it was the same breathing, but in the distance, you could hear screaming. Then there was a loud pop, something that sounded like a gunshot of sorts, and the screaming goes silent. It was really eerie, and I started coming up with all these possible scary outcomes on what exactly it was I heard. Regardless though, I blocked the number. Fast forward a week, and I get voicemails from a different number. Since I was asleep, I wasn't able to check them until 9 the next morning. At this time, someone is talking on the other end, and they pretty much go on to say how I was ruining the fun by blocking their old number, and how they had all my information and were coming to visit me in a matter of days from now. I blocked the number too, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't creeped out by it. Though no one did ever show up to my house. I still changed my phone number entirely, and it's now been about 6 months. I wonder who the caller was, and how they had my phone number to begin with. This is why I connected it with my deep web visit. But what do all of you think about it? Let me know down below in the comments section. Thank you. I figured since enough time has already passed, I can go ahead and talk about this with you all. It was early 2015, and I decided enough was enough. I wanted to get to the bottom of this whole deep web thing. All the videos I'd seen people make on YouTube and all the stories I read online, they were making me question whether or not the experiences were actually true or not. Obviously, some of them are just made up BS, but there's others that really kept me thinking at night. Was it really possible there's a place on the internet that we couldn't normally get to? A place where criminals can discuss some of the worst possible things imaginable? Needless to say, I knew I should have been careful since most of the videos did offer one important word of advice. Be careful what you click on. One day I finally had the courage to get the necessary programs and began doing my research. Side note, I wasn't looking for anything too terrible. I just wanted to see what I could find and what the deep web was really about. I started off by finding what appeared to be like a search engine. From there, I went ahead and typed in something like creepy lost footage. I was expecting to find a library of unseen videos and images. Needless to say, I got a website featuring hundreds of clips. Most of the preview images for the videos were really scary, and I was considering just closing the page right away. Sadly, my curiosity got the best of me, and I clicked on one of the videos that was titled My Dinner in the Woods, and was a little over 10 minutes long. It started off pretty normally. It was a video of someone walking through the woods, and after about 30 seconds, they started talking. They had that sort of creepy filter you hear in the movies. It was something like this, with a low tone and a scary demeanor to it as well. The person ended up talking about how they were going to visit someone in the woods. They explained it was their partner and they had been waiting to get dinner started for them. I can only imagine where they were going with this. Then the video cuts to a scene of what looks to be like an old abandoned cabin out there. It appears the camera was placed on a tripod as it's facing this old dilapidated building. It's silent for about 20 seconds. Then someone comes up walking up from the corner. They are wearing all dark clothing and look to have a Halloween mask on. They wave into the lens and then pick it up. Okay, let's go inside. I'm really hungry right now. They then start making their way into the cabin, and you could start hearing muffled screams in there. The next scene was what really got to me. It was really low quality because of how dark it was in there, but you could hear somebody crying. All of a sudden, the person holding the camera appears to place it on a countertop. From there, you can hear him go, "Shh, everything's going to be fine. Don't you worry about anything." Slowly, the sounds of crying went silent, until all that was heard were the crickets outside. About a minute later, one last thing is said. "Oh boy, time to get dinner started." Then, the video just ends. Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize what could have possibly ended up happening there, but I knew that this was it for me. From there, I closed everything and I went to bed, though sleep that night was pretty difficult to say the least. Fast forward a week later, and at this point I'd already put my deep web exploration behind me. It was a late night, and my dog and I had been out for a walk. Side note, I live alone, so I'm not sure who this could have possibly been. Also, I kind of live in the middle of nowhere. I say kind of because the nearest neighbors are at least a half a mile away from me. I just really enjoy the quiet of the countryside, you know? Anyway, someone with what looks to be like the same Halloween mask I saw in the video was peeking through my windows. There was an old pickup also parked near him. I kid you not, I lost my cool. But at the same time, I was not going to take my chances. Luckily, I do carry a handgun underneath my shirt, so without thinking, I yell out to the person, "What the hell are you doing on my property? Get out of here now before I shoot you dead." They then let out this really creepy laugh and they take a knife out. Yeah, no way am I having any of this. I take out my 9mm and this guy just freezes. All the meanwhile, my golden retriever is barking up a storm. Without moments to waste, this guy jumps into his pickup and drives away. I made sure to write down the license plate as well as to get a description of his vehicle. Immediately, I called the police and told them about the mysterious man. They don't end up finding him that night, so I go ahead and spend the night over at a friend's house instead. Following morning, I talked to the neighbors, and they told me it wasn't them. As an update, I later installed a security system and I set up some CCTV cameras. The person never returned, though there was a story on the local news that actually did catch my attention of all things. Apparently, someone had been trying to lure people online and trying to get their personal information. He had been caught after breaking into someone's home with that same Halloween mask I saw. I guess his plan was to take the occupants inside the home away and either kidnap them or hold them hostage. Even with all that, I tried figuring out how he could have found out where I lived. I guess anything is possible these days with these computer weirdos. I will learn later on that these creepy weirdos can either get your IP address or do even research to find where you live. Now, I don't know if the videos are still up or not since I've never gone looking for them ever again. Also, I don't know if it was the same person, or it could have just been some really messed up coincidence, but I'll never really know for sure. One thing I do know is that I have not had any strange visits since then, but if anything does happen, I'll make sure to keep you guys updated. So that was the last story for today's episode. Again, as I mentioned in the intro, if this was the first time you joined us, then do consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you'll be notified of all the future uploads coming here to the channel. Also, make sure to leave a like rating if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment telling me what you all thought. Also, if you yourself have a scary story that you'd like to share, then send it in with my user submissions email, which appears on screen on my videos, tcfnarrations@gmail.com. Now, if you're looking for more of the Creepy Fox, then check out all the other videos I got on my channel. There's so much narration content that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. I've also got some exclusive Scary Stories narration episodes. If you'd like to listen to those, then for as little as $2 a month, you can become a Creepy Fox channel member and gain access to 10 plus hours of extra additional content. I also got some cool merch which is featured down below. There's shirts, stickers, sweaters, coffee mugs, you name it. I got a lot of things that you might like, so check it out, see if you might find something on the Creepy Fox shop. Anyway, that is gonna go ahead and do it for today. Thank you so much everyone for watching today, and I'll go ahead and catch you all on the next episode. Until then, take care and have yourself an amazing day.
Hey everyone, it's Caesar here, host of the Creepy Fox Scary Stories podcast. Thanks for reaching the end of today's video. So, yeah, I know, it's been a hot minute that we've done any sort of videos in regards to the deep web. Actually, it's been like 5 years or so? It was like that hour and 10-minute long video that I did, so it's been a while, but hey, welcome back. I got a few things I want to talk to you guys about here. The deep web, I want to talk about those stories you heard today, whether or not there's going to be more of these in the future, and just channel updates and things like that in general. So what you'll notice is that, again, the length of this video was, the stories portion that is, was 2.5 hours. So what I did with this one is I took that 1 hour and 10-minute deep web stories video that I've worked on before, but instead of just taking just the audio from that, I actually completely redid everything. So I re-recorded all those stories. They are in this video. However, there's an additional hour and 20 minutes of brand new stories that aren't in that video. So I wanted to do that just because I didn't really want to have the video separate. I kind of just wanted one ultimate definitive edition of the deep web stories on my channel. So that's why I did what I did. If it's your first time clicking on my channel, then you'll be happy because, these will all be brand new to you. But again, if you've watched the previous 1 hour long deep web stories video, that's why you might hear some of the stories today where you're like, wait, I've already heard these ones. It's just, again, these were re-updated with the brand new audio, and you got the new visuals and the music and the sound effects and the new thumbnail and all of that. So that's where that was. And I wanted to go ahead and talk about, now that you guys got this 2.5 hour deep web stories video, I know there's going to be some folks asking me hey, does this mean we're going to be getting more deep web stories videos in the future? And my answer to that is it's not up to me. It's up to listeners and subscribers to the channel. And what I mean by that is, for those who don't know, maybe, like I said, you're joining us for the first time. The way I operate on my channel and the way I make my videos, it's very different from other people that are kind of in my similar kind of category, what we do with covering stories. I work with my subscribers. So subscribers, they email me, they reach out to me if we're doing a certain topic and theme, we'll talk about it, everything's written up and everything's put into a script. And so I'm able to make these episodes, right? For, in this case, the deep web stories. It did take, as you saw, it took about 5 years in order to get this extra hour and 20 minutes of stories. So that's the reason why it took so long. Again, it's all viewer, it's all subscriber participation. Obviously, that's why I always recommend people hey, if you guys want more videos, or if you want a certain topic and theme, if you yourself have a story, please reach out, because I feel like it's a situation where a lot of people kind of have the mentality, and there's nothing wrong with it, it's just it kind of is the reason why things are the way they are, where people think, oh, well, I'm not going to send in a story because I'm sure somebody else is going to send in a story. And then that person thinks the same way. And then it's just literally everyone thinks the same way. And then so nobody uploads any, or no one sends any stories, which again, it's fine, but just kind of something we got to keep in mind. Now, in regards to the stories themselves, as you saw, there was a good variety of different stuff. We covered stories in regards to mystery boxes and mystery box deliveries, meetings in person, which, as you learned today, you probably should not be doing. Even that first story with the deep web, actually no, is the third story in today's video. the story with the deep web dad killer, I mean, whew, that one was definitely an interesting one to read through. Same thing with the dog story. That one, I was debating on whether or not I wanted to include that story. Again, it is a deep web story, but as a person that loves animals, I have 3 cockatiels, I got a mitered conure, I got 2 parakeets, and then I just had a dachshund that just passed away. Old age, natural causes, but like that story there with the dog definitely really hit close to home. So again, I like to kind of sometimes I'll include some more graphic stories, and I like to kind of keep things uncensored. Again, that's why those warnings are there. So if that's something you can handle and you handle it, great. If not, then again, you don't need to listen to it. It's one of those stories where it's like, you know, you probably shouldn't listen to it if you can't handle that. In regards to upcoming schedule, things coming up and stuff like that, I am probably going to be continuing to remaster old episodes. As you guys saw, you know, I took a 4-month break, and for some reason you're coming back and you haven't seen that I've been uploading. I've been uploading again since April, like once every other week. And there's some stories videos I've been uploading where they're new ones, where they're stories I never released. And then there's also some where, again, they're remasters. I go back to really old episodes that have terrible audio, the visuals and everything's just blah. And so I re-record everything, I get brand new footage, brand new music, brand new audio, brand new thumbnails, and I combine that into the project that it is, and then that's why you guys get the videos the way you did. So that's why for the last, couple months, you guys have been getting the topics and themes that you've got in. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. In regards to the videos themselves, I have no idea what's been going on. I feel like, it's a number of things. I know a subscriber on my couple of previous videos ago, they mentioned that, YouTube most likely as a cause, and yeah, I feel like it's the case, and that is in regards to just the overall viewership on the channel. I feel like I've been putting out some of the best content I've been putting out in years, and it just feels like the views aren't there. And I know for a fact a lot of it has to do with YouTube. For some reason, they're suppressing my uploads. They're not pushing them out. And it's silly because then I'll see, videos out there that are AI. They have AI voices, and these videos I see them. They have tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of views, but then it's like, yeah, I see people commenting saying like, oh, they don't like AI voices, but then it's like, why are these videos getting hundreds of thousands of views? My only guess is they're botted, the views are botted. Honestly, I have no idea. It's all backwards, but I just wanted to mention that because if you've missed any videos or you haven't seen my videos, and they're there, I've been uploading. I even put out a 2.5 hour no ads video. There wasn't even a pre-roll ad at all. So you know how when I've uploaded no ads videos before, you click on it, there's a pre-roll ad, but then once the pre-roll ad is over, which you could skip, then it's like you can watch the rest of the video uninterrupted. For some reason, even that didn't really get pushed out. Don't get me wrong, there's people watching it, but again, it's still a situation where there's just so many people who aren't watching the videos, and it really shocks me and it really surprises me to see that even the no ads videos aren't getting viewed. I don't know, we'll see, but this video itself, I might change it retroactively. I'm not sure if I'm gonna launch this video with no ads. I was thinking about doing it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should try and upload this one with no ads and give them the 2.5 hours of deep web stories with no ads. But then I looked at my previous videos I've been uploading with no ads and they haven't been getting viewed. So if this video starts to get traction and it starts to get views, and maybe what I'll do is I'll retroactively remove the ads, or again, we'll see whether or not I upload this with ads. But I really, like I said, I really need to see it, you guys. Like if you guys really want videos with no ads, then I really need to see you guys tuning in, saying hi, commenting, liking, and all that. Which, by the way, make sure, sorry, I know I've been talking a lot, but it's like, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit here. Like the video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment. If you're watching this in the first week of this video being uploaded, click that hype button. There's still people out there that don't know what that is. So basically what it is, there's a leaderboard on YouTube, and there's like 100 videos on this leaderboard, and when you hype a video, the video gets a certain amount of points. So obviously the more people that click hype, the higher your video ranks up on that leaderboard. It's kind of like the trending section on YouTube, and this is made more so for like smaller channels. And it's helped to make their videos get pushed out more to new people. So I don't really want to like, I was going to say, it's not called age gating, view gating, or what's that one? I forget the word, but it's like, I want my videos to get pushed out to new people, and I don't want, you know, suppression of my videos to be the reason why the videos don't get pushed out. So let's please work together to get these videos out, because like I said, I want to do more no ads videos, and I definitely want to do more deep web stories videos, but everything's going to kind of depend on, you know, the future. But anyway, like I said, I know I kind of rambled here at the end a little bit. I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that watched today. Thank you again, everyone that has been subscribing. Thank you to the subscribers who I was able to work with on this episode. If it wasn't for all of you, none of this would even be possible. So in the comments down below, also say thank you to the subscribers who shared these stories, because without their help, I wouldn't be able to make these videos. Anyway, everyone, that is gonna go ahead and do it for today. I'll go ahead and catch you guys on the next one. And until then, take care and have yourself an amazing day. Bye.